I believe the YouTube gods like us today. I can't quite tell. I think we're live. Yes, I think we're live. Okay. And good afternoon, folks, and welcome to another edition of Smudcast. And oh boy, this is going to be a little different because Renegade Cut is always a hard swallow, hard sell. It's kind of hard to understand where he's coming from half the time. He likes to explain himself. He likes to reference books. He does his research.
Renegade Cut is like a box of scorpions.
A well-documented box of scorpions. He handpicked the scorpions just for us. So his take on the movie Ready Player One, he changed the name to Gamergater 1. I don't know what that has to do with anything.
I think I haven't seen this, but I'm making an educated guess that he's going to try and link that the game is rising up against the corporation to Gamergate.
Really? I didn't even think about that. I thought he's just going to have some sort of pop reference, how it's popular because Gamergate was popular, so everyone was using it. And therefore, that's the thrust of...
I don't know. Have you seen his other videos where he injects politics into absolutely nothing?
I know, but that's just most people on the left's take on media. They'll just inject whatever they think into it because...
So therefore, I'm predicting that this guy is going to say, hey, well, this is supporting the uprising because gamers are rising up against the corporation. In this case, this is supposed to represent the corporate of the game developers and journalists.
Maybe. I don't know. This came out in October 2018. It's not that big a deal. Gamergate was done a long time ago. So
No, but you know people like to keep bringing up Gamergate all the time.
I know.
Nothing's really happening right now, and all of a sudden Gamergate. Phantom Menace was Gamergate. Comicsgate, that's derived from Gamergate. No, they didn't name themselves, but okay.
Yeah, they keep bringing it up because the boys online, the gamer bros, they're misogynists, they're racist. They might even be closet fascists if they knew the term and were smart enough to read a book on fascism. Not that anyone on the left actually knows what fascism is, or anyone for that matter I've ever talked to can give me a proper definition because it's so nebulous and complicated to figure out. So yeah, that's how we deal with these people. We just sort of like laugh and nod. You go, yeah, that's funny. Okay, yeah, we're fascists. All right, we're using a hashtag. It's great.
Hashtag bash the fash.
Bash the fash. Is that new? Is that popular?
Well, it's an old one, but it's one that was used a while ago.
Oh dear. Okay.
It was kind of like around the time of when Richard Spencer got punched.
Oh, that thing. Oh, okay.
Yeah, so they started saying, bash the fash.
So that's when they started saying punching Nazis is good or something like that?
Yeah.
Okay. I don't know how that became popular, but I guess that's when it started, so yeah. All these Nazis ruining everything for everyone. Okay. Anyway.
Richard Spencer would be an absolute no-one if someone didn't go and punch him in the face, so they gave him a platform.
I know. It's just silly things they do. Violence, huh? How does that work? Yeah, don't use it, guys. Jeez. It's not okay to hit
9 out of 10 dentists recommend violence.
Yeah. It's not okay to hit people in a first world country, okay?
Well, in a third world country, is it okay to hit people then?
There might be some mitigating circumstances in regards to excessive force from the government to fight back, but only in defensive means. Third world countries, you can always relate to the political system and power. So what's causing the people to be violent? It's usually a reaction from the government. Too much taxes, curfews, police states, you name it. You might have a good reason when your liberties are infringed upon or your freedoms are taken away from you. And the only recourse is to fight back. So, but this is not a political conversation we're going to have right now. So, let's talk about pop culture references in Renegade Cut's video. Before that, let's jump to the wonderful super chats. Hey, Dunn, how you doing?
Good. Sorry, I was a little bit late. I was chatting about themes on my stream.
Well, that's always a fun topic. Oh my,
A
themes.
theme.
Yeah, it was kind of just a general overview for an hour and a half discussion, and we'll probably dive into it more as time goes on. But
That's cool. That's cool. All right. Good to hear. Got some literary conversation going there that I know is not a bunch of subjective nonsense. It's always good.
yeah, it is. Where it's just like sometimes themes are intentional, sometimes themes are not intentional, sometimes themes just flow naturally out of a story. But if you don't have a story, you have broken themes.
Yeah, if you need to write a story well before you can start sprinkling themes on there. It's like an icing. It's something you add after. It's also not after, but it's something that you add on top for extra flair.
A clear story will have a clear theme. It's just how it goes.
Mm-hmm.
So, anyway, John Lemley, thank you, sir. Can't wait to hear Renegade Cut say Ready Player One is a fascist, or is fascist, and is part of the gay horror subgenre. Oh boy, yeah, I don't know. That was a reach. As much as the word from God said that, oh yeah, Freddy Krueger is clearly a gay horror story. It's like, I don't know. Probably not.
And this is because he is literally coming out of him.
He's coming out of like a little closet. Like, okay, we get it. Thank you. And here's literally nothing. His name is nothing. Thank you, sir. Are you ready for stupid? Get ready to cringe and moan 'cause stupid. Well, you know what? Renegade Cut is at least references books. So I can give him that credit. He reads the books he references. We can respect that. It's his conclusions we just don't understand. So, always fun to listen to Renegade Cut ramble on about something or other. So, yeah. Joe Crazy, thank you, sir. We talking about Gamer Bros? You sure it ain't a Xander Hall video? You know what? We might be talking about Gamer Bros. I'm not sure yet.
We don't talk about Xander here.
Yeah, he's kind of a depressing moment in the world of Smudcast. But
Look, you just pretend he doesn't exist.
That's a good rule of thumb. When YouTube pops in your head, just forget Xander-ish. Xander Hall, Xander-isms. It's kind of forgetful anyway because he has nothing to say, but yeah.
Mm-hmm. It's basically a whole stream of nothing.
Yeah. Here's Tyler Preston. Gamers, rise up, also hi again, Spud. Well, hi there, Tyler. Yeah, we're not sure what the premise of this video is. I just saw a few minutes. It seems fine so far, but we know there's going to be that political spin. We're just going to sit there and go, huh? Excuse me? I don't think the writer implied that, sir, but we'll just have to hear your argument for it. And John Lumley again, thanks again. Gamers are the most oppressed race. I don't know what's going on. We're the massive consumers of the greatest entertainment production of current humanity, meaning whatever we have to entertain ourselves. We have the largest lion's share of the GDP for that entertainment sector. And we're just oppressed. I don't know. We just all this stimulation and entertainment and ethics lessons and competitive nature. We're just so oppressed. I don't know how that works. All right, let's get going. Philosophy and politics in the movies. What a great subtitle. Thanks.
I think that's the subtitle to his channel. That's to his channel, not the video.
I know. It's just fantastic. Okay.
Remember King Kong? Remember Ferris Bueller? Remember War Games?
In the 2011 Ernest Cline novel, Wade Watts, known online as Parzival, is a gunter, someone who is searching for a special Easter egg inside a massive game/life experience called The Oasis. Its designer, James Halliday, recently died and let everyone in the world know that whoever finds the egg will receive a preposterous amount of money and control of the Oasis itself. Parzival runs into a gunter named Artemis, and he is smitten with her. Artemis repeatedly tells Parzival that she does not want a relationship because they're rivals. But Wade wears her down through constant messaging because he's such a nice guy. Parzival eventually wins the
I'm
contest.
not sure
and
that's
the Oasis
correct.
is saved from the evil mega corporation that also wanted to.
But I don't think that's correct because I think they go out on a date. I don't think it's wearing her down. I think she was active. I haven't watched the film in a while, but I'm not sure that's correct. Maybe someone can.
I don't think. Yeah, she did. He is attracted to her.
Yeah.
He invites her on a date. They interact a lot. Slowly, they gain a connection.
That sounds like a typical setup for boy meets girl. So
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It isn't
Yeah,
like he's. It's not the nice guy trope where he's slowly wearing her down after she doesn't want to go out with him. It's not that at all.
Oh, he does kind of say "I love you" way too early.
Yes,
Like,
I'll agree.
yeah. And Ready Player One, there are problems, but most of the problems with Ready Player One are not what this man is saying. He is misrepresenting it.
Well, we don't know yet. It's only been a minute, but maybe he'll come up with some real problems.
well, maybe this is a nitpick of his. He had a big, because he's a psychologist. He understands people very well. So, you know,
does he?
Yeah, boy meets girl.
Just Right had a weird take where he thought that the holy hand grenade of Antioch reference in there was a reference to weaponized religion.
Really? Of course it was.
Yes. But like, thankfully he corrected himself because the comments corrected him. Like, he put a comment in like, "Sorry, I should have recognized the holy hand grenade."
Are you serious?
Who's never watched Monty Python.
How could he not have seen Monty Python? Oh my! I can't. This guy is Canadian. Like, I feel offended already.
He also made the remark that, like, that thing about Mary is the time when it makes a reference to the something about Mary hairdo. He's thinking, oh, it's a feminine hair. It's like, no, it's a gross out joke.
Oh.
But just somebody has when Cameron Diaz has like stuff poured in her hair, and it just makes it, and then it sticks up. That's just a joke.
Yeah, I know.
Voice.
Sage is a bit unique when it comes to criticism or analysis. He misses a lot, and he comes to strange conclusions. But he puts a lot of effort into his videos. I'll give him that much. You know, lots of editing. So
Yeah.
maybe he should work behind the screen more.
Yeah, his editing's really good.
Yeah, he's great.
Yeah.
Good day.
Howdy, voice.
Hey, voice. How you doing?
Not bad. Fashionably late as always.
That's fantastic.
Oh, don't worry. I was late too. Don't worry. I was late too.
But you see, I was fashionably late.
Oh, I thought you were fascistly late.
Fascistly late.
Yes.
Don't you love?
Fascist is never late or early. He arrives exactly when he intends to.
Oh.
In Poland.
Yes.
In Poland. Always Poland.
Poland.
I gotta be somewhere right in about 4 minutes. Like, where's that? So, in case you don't know, we're doing Ready Player One analysis by Renegade Cut, which he is referring to as Gamergater 1. I don't know why, but let's find out.
Well, I've laid down my theory already.
Does Gamergate have negative connotations?
Yes.
Oh yeah.
These people, yeah.
Well, it's basically like I think that partially he's saying that I think he's gonna do what Just Right said and go like it's saying that there are right things and wrong things to focus on, and that girl things are for girls and boy things are for boys.
I'm not quite sure he's gonna say that, but hey, we'll see. We'll see. He's gonna have his reasons. Let's see what they are.
To control the game. Ready Player One asks the question, what if the entire world revolved around me and all of the stuff I like?
No!
Yeah, I don't think so.
No. It's what if there was a virtual world where you could literally do anything, not if the world revolved around me.
This is kind of like the Second Life taken to its eventual conclusion, which is just this giant universe that you can play in as a sandbox.
Mhm.
So it's not
It's kind
just
of like VR.
geeks.
Yeah, exactly.
In fact, it
It's
is a
also
kind of
not just
VR.
geeks.
You were saying, Dunn? Dunn, you there?
Yeah, I am. Yeah, sorry.
Oh,
No.
I was just wondering what you were saying. Are you okay?
well, yeah.
I think a big problem with
Oh, we lost you again there, Dunn.
what Renegade. Oh, come on! Why is it doing this? Why is my? I wonder why my mic is so tismy on Discord. Let me see if I can put it with the settings. But I think like what he's saying,
It's wrong.
what he's saying is fully wrong. But kind of we have a problem because it's not just geek stuff in the Oasis. It's just whatever VR thing you could think of. Like,
yeah, you can go hand gliding, you can go ballet dancing, you can do anything.
on like
It's
a,
not just
you see like a fantasy golf, like this like 3-dimensional golf course where like various like targets that you bounce the ball off of.
yeah. There's
So-
also companies which build content within the Oasis. So there's always new stuff being added by what the consumer wants.
So it's pretty much
Such
run
as
as
playing
a-
Overwatch skins, for example.
it's the beginnings of a holodeck, and not all the stuff is there for the holodeck to make. It's always on. People are always adding stuff, kind of like the internet, only visual and interactive.
Imagine VR chat, and it's exactly like VR chat, but a bit more advanced.
There you go.
Yeah.
So in regards to the entire world revolved around me, that is akin to a protagonist in a story. Of course, the story is going to be the focus, or focusing on the protagonist. And in this regards, he's referring to a person reading the book or watching the movie, and people just like pop art, pop culture, video games, whatever's modern at the time. I think it was it the early 2010s? When would this movie come out? I can't recall.
This came
only a
out
couple years
actually
ago, wasn't
20. This came out in 2018, I
Oh,
believe.
really? Wow.
It feels
And-
longer for some reason.
Yeah, it does.
It is really dated.
It is very dated, yeah.
It dated itself very quickly, which is probably why it feels so much longer.
And all of the stuff I like. The novel is less of a narrative and more of an excuse to bombard the reader
girl.
with pop culture references that simply never stop, as a meta-narrative to test said reader on their geek IQ.
I
No,
don't think so. I really don't think so.
it's more
I think-
like nostalgia. It's trying to throw nostalgia in this. Hey, yeah, you remember Gundam? Do you remember Batman Arkham Knight? Do you remember Mario? Do you remember what was it, Iron Giant? Do you remember Street Fighter? Do you remember Ninja Turtles? Do you remember Star Wars?
It was a
it's pretty much
terrible
like that.
film. Because, like, in 5 years' time, a lot of those references are going to go obsolete.
Yeah, I was right. It came out in 2018.
Wow, holy
I mean,
crap.
hell, who still plays Overwatch these days?
Nah.
And that was only
And
2 years
they put a
ago.
lot of Overwatch into that game as well. Like a lot of the characters were often at the forefront.
I like the idea that they were planning it to be some big thing when realistically it was just that year's farcical trend.
Yeah,
I
Yeah.
think I
I
remember.
like the idea that they got a lot of brands together to like brands that people love. But the problem is that the way they implemented those brands.
It is literally the same idea as Food Fight, but actually done to a better budget.
Well, think
Actually,
about.
I would say it's done to a better degree than Food Fight because Food Fight was very blatantly obvious, endless, just product placement. Whereas this isn't necessarily just product placement, more just nostalgia fest.
Compare that to.
It's weaponized. It's like weaponized
it's not weaponized
nostalgia.
nostalgia because weaponized nostalgia is something like Force Awakens, for example. It's not.
It's designed to press your. It's designed to. Well, weaponized nostalgia is just specific references
Because
throughout
it's
a
being
movie.
more
It's designed to
respectful.
press your nostalgia button.
it's being more respectful of the nostalgia, which is why I don't say it's weaponized, but it is just filling it full of just nostalgia everywhere.
Well, compare this
It's
to
more a background thing than it's something that's always in the forefront.
compare this to the movie The Wizard, where we had Fred Savage. Was it Fred Savage? I can't remember exactly who it was, but it was a story about this kid, similar to the Pinball Wizard, who could just pick up a game and know how to play it very well. This was Nintendo. This was Super Mario Brothers 3. There was Zelda. There was Link to the Past. There was not Link to the Past, Zelda 2. So there's all these references to early Nintendo games, which weren't dated because we know what the NES is. It was all themed specifically to those games. So kids can relate to that back in the day. Whereas this is just a shotgun approach to everything. It just has all sorts of games from all sorts of platforms and ages. There's the 80s, the 90s, the 2000s. So it's just taking all this idea from gamer culture and throwing it on the screen in 3D.
Yeah.
Oh, there's a super chat. Thank you, John Lemley. Gamer male who likes woman is a gamer male who likes woman? Gamergate fascism. I don't know. That's it's a little lost on me, sir. Here's Joe Crazy. Correction, Shiny. It is VR chat without the virtual sexual encounters. Yes, that happens a lot from what I've heard. Oh, really? That's nice to know. Shiny, what are you doing in VR
Well,
chat these
thankfully
days?
enough, that has rarely ever happened to me in VR chat. Usually because I hang around a group of people, which is not the people like that stay away from big groups.
Isn't there a VR game that involves Star Trek where you're on the bridge and everyone has
Star Trek Bridge Crew. I played it.
Okay.
It's pretty fun.
Yeah, it looks pretty fun too, yeah. Kind of crazy, but fun.
The only issue is that you need to get like 4 friends who also own VR at the same room at the exact same time to play a single game.
Yeah.
Well, not in the same room per se, but all 3 essentially.
At the same time. Yeah.
So Andrew Clark, Ready Player One is an action trivia party with high stakes. There's a good way of putting it. Yeah.
I'd say it's a trivia party. Because it doesn't require you to know the knowledge of all the characters. It's more just nice to know that. Hey, look, I understand that. I get that character, and I get that character. It doesn't rely on you to know who Cammy from Street Fighter is, or know what that particular Gundam thing is.
How I've heard it described, that's what the book is, kind of. Or at least, like, that is the book is on the character knowing a lot of, like, pop culture trivia and just kind of throws it out. Like, the last test is apparently reciting all of Monty Python and the Holy Grail.
In the book, in the film, it's more you don't finish the final game. You have to find the very first Easter egg or something.
Well, the thing is,
isn't it? The question I have is, what year is it set? Is it like
2044? I think. It's a post-apocalyptic world where oil is like a scarce resource, and
but is it set in like the year 2200 or something like that?
2044.
Well, I will check. It is set in the year 2045.
Okay, so the year 2045. Never mind. My point was going to be obsolete. So the year 2045.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay. I thought it was a little further along than that. Never mind.
Okay. Well, what I was trying to say is that the book is pretty much just Ernest Cline doing Ernest Cline over again in a novel format. If you read or listened to any of Ernest Cline's work, he is really heavy duty on commenting on geek culture, whether he's talking about the 80s or his favorite topic is Airwolf or all sorts of things. He's said these things. You could watch his slam poetry styles on YouTube. The Geek Wants Out is one of them. Dance Monkeys Dance. These have been known for at least 20 years. So when I heard that he was making a book, I was like, oh, cool. And then that was getting into a movie. I'm like, holy crap, he got some attention from Spielberg there. How the hell did that happen? So interesting stuff. But when you read the book, it's like, yeah, this is exactly what Ernest Cline would say. So it all makes sense to me because you know him as what he was doing 20 years ago. So people who don't, we're like, what the hell? Why is he referencing all these things that make no difference, you know?
Do you get the Nintendo reference? Then you're a real gamer. Chapter
No, I'm sorry.
That's not what they. That's not the film.
Oh, Glib, I didn't even see you there, sir. How you doing?
What's up, man?
Hey, how you? Well, hope you're doing well. And
I'm here to defeat the communists in verbal battle
Well,
on the
that should be
YouTubes.
that should be
We're
a nice.
about
Global
to-
terrorism.
That'll be a fun challenge because this is always Renegade Cut turns everything into a political fiasco. I don't know what exactly.
mumbo jumbo.
We don't know yet, but it's going to happen.
Freddy Krueger coming out of this character is symbolic of the gays coming out, and this is why it is homophobic.
It's the queers. They're coming to take our children over. Something like that. That's what he's saying.
He's going to politicize video games. Here we go.
6 is mostly dedicated to simply listing things.
Douglas Adams, Kurt Vonnegut, Neil Stephenson, Richard K. Morgan, Stephen King, like War Games, Ghostbusters, Real Genius, Better Off Dead, or Revenge of the Nerds, Lord of the Rings, The Matrix, Mad Max, Back to the Future,
Yeah, the book
and
sucks.
Indiana
I agree.
Jones.
Okay, so
I would assume in the context.
Trash.
I would assume in the context it's talking about what's possible within the world. It's
yes. Okay, this is not an entire chapter, but this is part of a chapter. There's also another section of the book dedicated to masturbation, which is
I missed the first.
hilarious.
I missed the first section of this. You know what I mean? So I don't know what he's said yet, but has he mentioned Gamergate yet?
Not yet.
no.
Okay, so he's setting up what is he like mischaracterizing
he's
gamers yet?
No. Well,
Give me the
he said that
summary.
the film is like a trivia question where if you don't get all the answers, you're not a true gamer. And then he's also claimed,
Where did he get that from?
Yeah.
I don't know. He's also claimed that he's making that claim right now. That
He's making that claim.
yeah. So let me think back to what he said.
And he's
earlier.
doing it in his
Also
very
said-
calm essay
If you
voice.
shut up, then maybe I'll be able to say what else he said. Okay. Fuck, now you've made me forget.
You're not a real gamer girl. Go home.
I believe that he's talked about how like Wade is kind of the archetypical nice guy, and kind of if he's
he's
slowly weighs down Artemis in order to get him to date her, but that's not the case. It's just they meet. She's not terribly interested in it initially, and he just he likes her, but he doesn't press his suit, I guess is the best way to put it.
they both just kind of work together, and then they slowly fall for each other while working together on finding the Easter eggs.
I think it's funny because the primary criticism and the thing that I wanted to start from is that Ready Player One is a terrible book that's basically just a bunch of references to different things, and they're all put together into the most generic type of Willy Wonka story. And I think that's what Spielberg picked up on. He's like, oh, it's like Willy Wonka, but with the video games. The kids love the video games, and look at all this virtual reality. So it's a free for all. So I don't know where he's getting. It's a gatekeeping thing because it's the point is that it's saturated with things that you know. As many things as they could sign a corporate deal to have in their movie, they do. They don't have to know every aspect of it. Because if you did, this is the part that he's missing, his entire blind spot, or maybe it's intentionally what he's trying to do. Where
I would say that.
Hold on, I'm talking. So the point is that I'm trying to get at is that you have these different franchises that are recognizable, and it's the saturation of that, and it's the abuse of nostalgia. But if you're a real video game person, or if you're a real gamer girl, or whatever the hell he's saying, you're going to be upset that your fan service has nothing to do with the plot, and then it's kind of just a Mary Sue character walking around picking stuff up. Ready Player One is the Mary Sue Trekker's tale in a book format. It's just that the time that it came out, fanboyism has gotten so rampant because it's so profitable that there's no authority to step in there and tell them, like, guys, it's really stupid and cringe that you're trying to make this like isekai MMO that is just brand names. It's not. It doesn't have anything deeper to do with worlds or plots or the idea of an interesting video game. Who really wants to play the video game in the movie or in the book? Not me.
I want to play the video game in the movie.
In the movie?
In the
How
movie.
does that even work?
Well, it's kind of like VR chat, just a lot more advanced.
It's like VR chat. It's I don't know. The concept doesn't work.
world,
It's not functional.
physically do
That you.
anything.
Yeah,
Yeah,
sure. If
it's
it
very
was like
sci-fi.
if it's like a mental thing that can tap into your brain, I have my own version of this. I have my own
No,
little
it doesn't
video
tap-
game movie
At
idea.
least in the film, it doesn't tap into the brain. It's more like a really advanced form of VR.
Yeah, but how do you move around and experience all these different things like the different things? How do you jump and fly around?
They show that you physically move around in your equipment. So
And that's the primary reason why VR is not popular is because there's not enough space in anybody's living room. Most people have small amounts of space.
no, VR is popular. Don't get me wrong.
No, it's not.
It is.
So-
It's not. But okay,
so-
we can keep moving on.
So
Explain why halfway.
Can I interject? Can I interject regarding the VR in Ready Player One? They actually do have a way. It's basically like a rotary treadmill, is how they're able to get around the movement thing.
Mhm.
So like, they're able to move around. They just have like a treadmill that kind of tracks the movement. So that's how they solve that problem.
Does that explain how they can get into cars and vehicles and stuff and move around in every direction and jump around?
I
you
don't
know what a treadmill is,
That's
right?
the best that I got.
I do know what a
That's
treadmill
the best
is.
that I got.
Do
Well,
the
it's like it's not
semantics
really
of
like-
how the VR work really matter all that much? to
Yeah,
Glib?
yeah, because Avatar didn't have this problem, and they didn't. All they had to do was create a cinematic box that was like, oh, somehow it links up to his
Like,
brain or
you
whatever.
can-
And by the way, there's a better version of this in the book called Snow Crash, I believe it's called.
Glib,
They have a really interesting way of doing it.
You can actively do stuff in VR that you're not physically doing, and an example of this is jumping. When you go around in VR, you're not actually physically jumping up and down, but instead you're pressing a button which basically moves you like you are jumping.
I'm
So
aware
you
of that.
can do actions within the game that you're not actually physically doing, but a lot of the physical actions, like running, jumping, like the sensation of touch, that's all done
Mhm.
by equipment that you're physically moving around in.
Yeah, you have to. So like, what I've been trying to explain, like with the VR popularity thing, is it costs an enormous amount of money for the average consumer at a time to get the whole kit, like with all the gloves, the index kit, and all that stuff, plus the sensors, all the stuff together. And then the idea in this world where everybody's packed into these small spaces and you have to get a suit that has like kinesis and like you have to have the hand gesture things and you have to set yourself up to some apparatus that you'd have to pay for with the goggles and everything. It doesn't really make sense that people would pay for that kind of thing. It seems like someone would come up
the
with a better
levels
way to
of
do
VR
it.
in that world, they're very. There's kind of like you don't have to have a set level to get into VR because some of them are seen to have very low end VR headsets or what is a VR headset essentially, and some have the really upper class ones. So some of them are literally
Right.
just an Oculus Rift, while some of them are actual proper full treadmills. So there is a large variety of different kind of headsets.
I don't
can
think that
get.
that's.
And we're
different
talking
amounts
about a
of room.
system that has accelerated dramatically in the last 10 years and is becoming cheaper and more efficient and will
Yeah.
eventually be commercialized as the next step of gaming. So if the film wants to say in the year 2045 it is efficient and easy to get hold of this gaming experience, which is taken over as like the next big thing, I'm willing to suspend my disbelief of how the world works around me today.
Okay, but like they don't. You'd
VR
have
is
to buy an equipment that would like flip you upside down if you flipped
No.
upside down, or else your
Yeah,
inner
but
your ear would be fucked
years
up.
into the future. How far do you go before you start criticizing Star Wars? If that's not how my understanding of theoretical physics
No,
works
that's
in my
different.
modern
That's
society,
That
It's the
is
same
not.
logic.
That's not attempting
It's the
to
same
be a
logic.
reality that's based in our world. That's attempting to be a fantasy from a galaxy far, far away. It's a long time ago. It's
How
in the
is-
beginning. How do you
how
expect?
is
You're
How
making-
does
so
your-
it's a fantasy? Hang on, it's a fantasy because it takes place far in the future. by
That
your
Star
definition.
Wars is not trying to explain any of its technology, is it? Name how anything works in Star Wars.
Visual Dictionary.
Right.
TIE Fighter.
No.
sounds-
I'm not. I'm talking about. You're talking about fictional power sources doing X and Y, right? Like you need a crystal in the saber, and then suddenly this circuit completes that the crystal just has enough energy in it. It's a non-radioactive crystal that you can
Yeah.
hold in your hands, but it
Funny
can
enough,
generate a
the
power sword.
That's
That's
even
not
based in
realistic.
real life. No, but the one
How-
fiction that's okay, good. Which is even based in real life, it still goes off the rails and creates something new that it isn't properly realistic within our own world and our capabilities of technology. You're not going to know how exactly. So in the way you're describing it, you can't have anything more advanced than we already know how to make.
That's not what I'm saying.
But we're taking place 35 years in the future. If this story wants to tell me that gravity works in, if we were playing Ready Player One and the story of the universe explains to me that gravity works in reverse in this story, okay, just stick to that. You don't have to go, well, that's not how it works in my universe.
Hey, Glib, I
don't know. That sounds like
medium as a whole, because VR is I agree with voice. VR is currently, I would say, much further along than a lot of people think it is, because it is breaking out. It's bigger than it ever has been, and it continually grows with each month. I think games like Half-Life Alyx have really started to bring it in a lot more with what it's capable of, and trying to push people to go get it. Every time I've met someone, they say, I don't think VR is realistic. I don't think it's possible. I think it's nothing more than a trend. I give them a few minutes on my VR headset. They are blown away. They are amazed at everything. Everyone from my friends to my uncle, my dad, everyone. They have been blown
Is this like a stump speech for VR? Like, everybody support VR?
No, but
is that what it is?
If you've experienced VR, then I think and you have a bit more knowledgeable about it, you'd have a completely different perspective, because a lot of you are someone who has not had a great deal of experience with VR as a whole.
You're talking about me?
Yes.
No, you don't know what you're talking about. You don't know that. You're just assuming that.
Well, the way you're talking about it, you seem to, like you said before, that VR has failed. Please tell me how it has failed.
I'm not saying it's failed.
You said earlier that it failed.
No, I didn't.
You did?
No, I didn't.
The reason why VR is failing is because people don't have enough room, they don't have enough money, they don't have the equipment.
I think
it hasn't reached an end, so they're not going to give up on it.
I think that he's I think he was saying that it's limited rather than it's failing. I think that's one of the. I think
you've just admitted that it is a system that they're not giving up on. Therefore, based on that statement alone, you're accepting the idea that it could make advancements to the year 2045, where this kind of thing should be possible.
I absolutely could, but I'm just saying that the function of the system in Ready Player One and what they present in the movie, like the equivalent of what's happening in the VR world, is not matching necessarily with what's happening in the real world. There's not a logical system that exists in the story that they're presenting that makes sense.
So
and I'll try to find an example, but this is a real tangent.
So it's not explained, just like lightsabers you said aren't explained.
No, and that's not what I'm talking about. I'm saying that inside the logic that they're presenting, that they have a VR glove system, they have his glasses or whatever that they show in the beginning of the movie, and the actions that he's doing would not match up with the setup that he has. That's just a criticism. That's something that you need to think about when you're making a VR movie. And it's solved, by the way, it's solved by not having him physically do anything, by having some sort of thing like a Star Trek or whatever, where it just works, but it's a system that taps into your mind.
It sounds like the same criticism to me, but with extra steps.
Well, I like to do my homework, and I like to be specific and polished. I don't need to take a raw take at it. I know what I'm talking about.
But Glib,
otherwise I wouldn't speak up.
Physical action has to match what's happening in the game.
That's the goal. Yeah, that's the goal.
Well, surprise, surprise, there are limitations in the real world, and VR headsets. Today, when you wear a VR headset, if you're doing continuous movement, which I like to do a lot, a continuous movement is basically a joystick. You're not physically walking forwards. It's an action which is not represented by what you're physically doing, but it's something you're doing by pushing a button, and it's a separate action. So therefore, I believe that you can have a separate action of what your character is doing in a virtual world, and a character, or what you're physically doing in the real world. So it
depends. It depends on what kind of input the player has, what kind of feedback they have, what sort of actions. Because I understand it's fictional, but I'm talking about you're interchanging the VR reality with the fiction of the movie, and it's like how am I supposed to be specific if you keep changing it? Like in the real world of VR, you have to make in the real what?
No, because it is actually taking aspects of real world things like the treadmill or how VR headsets work today, and it's taking those aspects and it's putting them in the future. What if we take these and they're much more advanced in the future?
I understand that, and I'm saying that in the story, the actions that the characters are taking don't match up with the actions of what the actual avatars are doing. And I think that's an interesting choice. I think it would have made more sense for them to just be having this sort of mental experience, because that's more that gets rid of the logical dissonance that I was watching on screen, where something that was happening in the virtual world, I was like, what's happening in the headset? Like, how are they interpreting this event that's happening with a limited amount of interface? And if it is 2045, it's interesting that it's still limited to like goggles and stuff. Like, if technology can advance in one direction, I mean, how fast does that mean? Is Moore's law truly dead? How many transistors or whatever power source? I don't have to go that far into it. If you want to go into the science fiction of it to the level that like Star Trek goes into, there are still things to criticize. Like the holodeck still has there's some episodes where things don't really make sense. Like when they pause the holodeck, the fire doesn't pause. That's an error. That's just real life cutting into the imaginary world.
But it's something which you can explain with real-world technology today. For example, a game engine uses sprites.
I understand. Oh, hold on a second.
When you actually pause a game, sometimes when you pause a game, depending on what the game is, you can sometimes have sprites which are actively having a visual illusion of an effect that is constantly going all the time, even though the game all its actions have been paused. And you could make a similar correlation to what's happening in Star Trek. So
he gives the command to freeze the program. That means that there's an element running in the background. If the program freezes, you know what I mean? It's like you can mix the past, you can mix the right now technology. You can talk about the stories, narrative, and their fictional technology, or you can talk about the future. But you can't mix all of your statements, because then it's like you're speaking to different explanations. What I am saying is that in Ready Player One, the actions that are taken in the game world do not match with what is happening in the real world, and that is a cognitive dissonant thing that I see that happens in my mind.
You're nitpicking Star Trek, where saying, why does this happen in the background when it really doesn't matter that the fire is continually going?
I like nitpicking things. I like nitpicking things because when I get into a situation, I can be aware of something. So if I notice things when I'm watching Star Trek, how there's like a scuff, and I've been watching that because I see the 4K Blu-rays, and then I go in the next day and I'm working on a set, my brain is ready. It's like, okay, what's going to show up on camera? Am I going to notice shadows? Am I going to notice the boom in there? Sometimes I don't. I just encoded a video where one of the videos was off, but because I was paying attention to it and going through as many reviews as I did, I caught it and fixed it. So I think it's worth going into little things like that. You can decide where you don't care. You know what I mean? And you can tell me to shut up because you don't actually care about that. But you can't make me not notice it and care about it, because that's the way my brain is tuned. That's just what I notice.
Care about a problem in the story is completely subjective.
Well, okay, let's just look at media in general. We talk about other worlds, or having a brain in a box, or a brain in a jar. We explain that all by having a sleep chamber or some sort of room that you could enter, like a holodeck. Like in Fallout, you have those pods you get into and you enter this other virtual world. So it's been done better. The trope is very common. It's been done better in other stories. And to Glib's references to Ready Player One, he can point out all the flaws with the Ready Player One's interface not being sufficiently believable for what's happening. That's all he's saying, Shiny, okay? It's not a big deal. But
I do have to agree with the criticism that the amount of inputs for if the characters were submerged in water, based on the technology that we do understand for Ready Player One, despite the fact it's in the future, so we can suspend disbelief a little bit, I'm not quite sure how the technology that they provide to make it seem like this is a setup that works. I don't know if the technology that is given would actually be able to sustain that kind of immersion.
Right. So the problem is the technology, the world building, the explanation of the exposition of the tech, of what it does, is not enough for our knowledge, because we've seen these stories plenty of times through decades of movies, video games, you name it. And this is not sufficient. It's glitzy, it's polished, but it doesn't work and make sense the way science fiction should, or at least to a sufficient degree. Okay,
I don't think it's an important problem that you're attacking with the story. I agree, it would be nice if they added these smaller details in, but the bigger details are more important than the smaller details in the story. Sure. It's more just what you're talking about is sandpapering it down to get a nice smooth surface. I don't really care about the rougher spots now and again. which is what you're criticizing, like smaller parts of the story. Whereas the bigger details would be actually problems like the character development. The character development in the entire story is absolutely atrocious. And that's everything like the villains' motivations and all that kind of shit. That is something we're very valid to criticize within the story. What I think is less important to criticize is the actions they're doing within VR is not the same. They don't line up 100% to what would be possible in the headset, because we already have things, which I was explaining before, that you can do within the headset that isn't represented by what you're physically doing in real life.
Okay, I think we've exhausted this topic, but thanks for going back and forth, guys. I appreciate it. It's always an issue of believability in a story for certain technical aspects, especially in science fiction or in the future. So, your mileage may vary on how effective that is. Here's Joe Crazy. Just grabbed a beer. What I miss? Oh, just a little rant by everyone here about the believability of Ready Player One's tech, virtual reality, and that was fun. I like listening to it. So, anyway, let's go back to Renegade Cut and how he's going to spin this one politically, at least.
Dick, there is an entire chapter about the color white, but as it goes on, you begin to understand that the list of all the things that are white is Ishmael talking about an absence, a void, death. In Ready Player One, the chapter that just lists things,
Really? I'd like to actually go through that chapter just to see how wrong that is. Because I'm quite sure I'm quite sure there's more substance and context to just having a list of stuff.
A lot of the nostalgia stuff in Ready Player One is mostly background stuff. It's not listed off a lot. It's just like, oh, here's their holy hand grenade. Or here in the background, there's an Overwatch sign. Or in the background, there's Cammy.
Yes, but that is the movie.
Stormtroopers.
That's like we get the Spielberg treatment. Just make it work, make it popular. We get that. But the book, like other books, like even with American Psycho, the book, they had three chapters just dedicated to Bateman talking about music for no reason. For absolutely, you just started talking about Genesis for pages and pages. Like, what the heck? What is going on? And he does it 3 times.
But when sports came out in '84,
yeah, it's crazy. You're like, what the hell am I reading? And then you realize this is a story of a madman. Of course, he's going to say crazy shit. It's the same with the comedy or the commentary by Ernest Cline. This is the stuff he talks about.
So it makes sense that he's listing off these things. It's just bad writing. That's my thing. When I was reading, I was thinking, this is me in 7th grade. If I had no shame, I'd write a book like this.
Pretty much,
because there's nothing in it that makes me at any age would look at this and think, this is advanced. This is well thought out. This is good prose. It's like, because when he's listing stuff off, he's basically saying, like his character introduction, it's a list of things. It's I had the DeLorean because he likes Robert Zemeckis. That's the character and Ernest Cline. And I had the MI5B rifle. And I had the sword for Zelda. And I had Mario's shorts. Like, it just gets more and more into nerd culture. Yeah. I had this, and I had this, and I was ready to win the game. And, man.
That is pretty much his shtick. That is Ernest Cline. So you might not like it, but I understand it because I've heard his stuff 20 years ago. So it's like, oh, yeah, if he would write something about pop culture, that would be the man to do it. And not everyone's going to like it, for sure. So, like, he references Airwolf so many times in his old stuff. I'm like, why the hell is he talking about Airwolf? It makes no sense.
Why Airwolf? What is it with Airwolf fans? What is it that they like so much? Do they just like helicopters? Or what is it?
It's kind of like Xena and Kevin Sorbo shows, but just as an Apache attack helicopter. I don't know why. It just it doesn't make sense.
It's that gender.
Yeah. Here's Mad Courier 6. Thank you, sir. Have a couple beers on me. Way ahead of you, sir, but thank you anyway.
I need more beer, please.
Yeah, I've been trying some British beer. You guys do pretty decent ales, I gotta say. Pretty decent. The British, the UK amber ales are pretty decent.
Nice.
I have photographic proof to prove otherwise.
I haven't had alcohol in months.
Oh my, are you okay?
Yeah, I don't know. I just I got really drunk one day and I didn't like it.
That's a good reaction. Yeah. Okay. Good to find out.
Can't have a hangover if you don't stop drinking, Glib.
Yeah, you know what? It's hard not to be addicted to something though. Everybody has to have something. So I've been drinking way too much coffee.
Oh, one addiction to the
Ready
other. Oh
to,
dear.
Yeah, you know what I mean? It just there's no way out.
Got to space them out, I guess. I don't know. But hey, whatever works for you, Glib. That's cool. All right, Mad Courier 6 again. What's up with the super chat? Also, this book reads like a schmoes online fanfic, just touched up a bit. It is a hard read. Yeah, it's not for everyone. I admit that. Yeah. Maybe his spoken word stuff is easier to consume. Again, I go Ernest Klein or Ernie Klein on YouTube, find a bunch of his spoken word. They're hilarious, and they're not that long. They're like 2-3 minutes. So maybe that may be.
Or you can get Neil Stephenson's Snow Crash book and watch Tron Legacy again.
Oh yeah,
and have the same experience.
Is there a new Tron film coming out? I heard about. There's a rumor they're making a new one.
I heard that Tron 3 is going to have Jared Leto, and that brought down my expectations to negative 40 decibels.
Decibels. Your expectations were measured in sound.
Measured in what is it? Girlish anime fangirl screams. Yeah.
Are those yours, girlish anime fangirl streams?
Absolutely.
Well, no, it's probably Daft Punk's
go back to
version
Ready
of
Player One. I think it is kind of, again, what I kind of assumed put to JJ trying to distract the audience from thinking about the story too much, and then as long as you don't think about it, then it works. But the moment you start thinking about a lot of the things within the story, you start to think, actually, no, that's actually not very good. The character development makes no sense. If there is any character development at all, it's not very believable the way the characters act or the villains' motivations or the way certain things are done within the story and they go about. It's all like even some of the things they do, actions they take at the end of shutting it down for a few days. Like, I imagine how many people would be upset by that, and it's kind of like cutting your business in half as well. If you're taking up a business, it's like, oh, my business is only going to be active half the time. And it's like, wait, what? So you're just going to make a hell of a lot less money. That's going to impact your profits there. There's other ways to make sure people don't spend their entire life in VR, and really it's up to their choice if they really want to spend their whole time in the Oasis. But anyway, it is that kind of effect of distraction, don't think about it. But this one feels less like weaponized nostalgia and more like placing nostalgia in the background and kind of saying, how are we, fellow kids?
It's the member berries philosophy.
Yeah, it's kind of like member berries, but not quite as harsh and as horrible as Force Awakens. But still, it's the member berries approach and a distraction. I'd say Jingling Keys is actually probably better.
Really?
Yeah, because the plot of Ready Player One is stupid. If you just go backwards, you win the race and you unlock everything. Can you imagine that? Just go backwards.
No one has ever gotten something wrong in the game and they've accidentally gone backwards before.
Have you ever
done
played,
it just as a troll?
Ever played Mario Kart with your parents or with a kid who's never played Mario Kart before? The first thing that happens is they can't figure out how to steer and they end up driving backwards.
Welcome, kid. You're now in charge of the company.
Yeah, why?
I'm dead now.
Why would he give like an entire company to just some random fucker?
Hey, you think like me because you did one thing correctly, and you didn't even have to really think about it. It's such a stupid story.
The final option is you have to give up the key, and if you give up the key in the end, then that means you get to have the key. It's like, wait, what?
Look, I had a brilliant story idea for it because I'm such a smart man. No, I'm just kidding. But I had an idea about it, and then this movie came out, and I had a real rage about it because I was like, well, now my idea can't work because I had a similar idea, but instead of making it Willy Wonka, I was thinking of a video game content creator type person that had grown disillusioned with the company that he was making these VR games for. And so instead of it being Willy Wonka, him trying to find a replacement, it was like Apocalypse Now, where he locks himself in the simulation and they can't find him. So then our character is a hacker who gets caught in the opening initial incident, and then they say, hey, we'll clear your crimes if you go in and get the so-and-so, because we have to release the new version of this video game. And if we don't do it by this time period, we're going to lose all of our stock. So get in there, and you have to face off against all your video game heroes, because all your video game heroes are protecting their creator from being exploited by this evil corporation that just wants to make more and more shit and enslave everybody.
Anyway, we've got a video. Let's cover the video.
But no, we got fucking Ready Player One. And now I get to watch a guy talk in this really dead NPR voice about how there's something gatekeeping, and Gamergate is just trying to keep women and minorities out of video games. This is how low our civilization has fallen.
We want to sound like Jonathan McIntosh.
This is a video about... well, we're not here to talk about Ready Player One exactly. We're here to talk about Renegade Cut's terrible opinion.
We're here to talk about cassette tape voice. Coming up next, we have an indie YouTuber known as Renegade Cut from Seattle, Starbucks, Washington. Please enjoy Renegade Cut.
See, this is the problem. I can't do that soft, subtle voice.
Why would you want to? You've got a much better voice.
Thank you.
You're quite posh and old.
You're from the motherland. Of course you're better. Haha.
I can't do the soft, subtle voice because it just
sound a lot more British than I do.
Quieter.
You have to talk about all of these amazing themes.
Welcome to Goodell.
Review SAO. I don't know. I don't like these virtual world things. The only idea that I had about it, the only reason why I think that these movies should be made, and I think it's the opposite effect, like Ready Player One, the reason why I hate it on a existential level is because instead of being a real criticism of the human personality that goes for escapism over dealing with harsh truths, instead of it being a more complicated experience, it's about this, oppressive world, and everything could just be fixed if you take Thursday off, like it's a holiday. Like everybody just will get outside of the virtual world now. Let's go. You can stop playing video games, and it's like in a depressing world. And I think that the idea of people living more in their escapism and not being a part of some sort of like actual civilization, I think is destructive to the civilization. So there's like this niggling darkness at the back of my head about this kind of stuff, and it's so funny that Renegade Cut is focusing on something like games keeping people out. Like, it's such a petty thing to talk about. He could talk about the dystopian corporate landscape. I want to hear him talk about that in 16 minutes.
I don't think there's anything wrong with escapism as long as it doesn't absorb your entire life.
We're not entirely sure
and
what he's
there's
gonna
no
say.
better metaphor. There's no better metaphor for that than Ready Player One, which is that, like, okay, so again, in my world, in my movie idea, the world was populated not only by NPCs, but by people who are living like Disney. You know, the people that do the performance for Disney characters in Disneyland? They walk into the environment and they have to act like they're from that environment. Imagine that in a video game world, or like Westworld. So there's NPCs and then there's real people like in Second Life. They live their entire life in a VR world only to leave to go get food. And then you'd have people that would like surgically attach food bags and stuff so you could see who was addicted to video games or whatever by their little like supplemental things. People would be like pale. Would there be evolutionary changes to people sitting or lying in some position for most of the time? Would people have interventions? Like, there's so many cultural aspects and deep, dark sci-fi things that you can do with that, while also having this adventurous tale about a kid and falling in love with a girl that has self-esteem issues.
Another thing in the world that I just kind of realized is that they established that it has an economy. Like, the game actively has companies, it actively has people making lots of money, which can actively equate to real life money somehow. So
yeah, exactly. I love that.
So it creates an entire economy in the virtual world, which equates to real life, and then they shut down the Oasis half the time. That's going to fuck a lot of people's monies and income if they can only get their money half the time.
Well,
there has to be a greater thing outside of the virtual world and escapism that people should search for, but that creates a bigger conflict. Like, it'd be really cool to have this VR world in the context of like early space colonization. Like, you can either go to space and leave and try and find some oil decker job in the the asteroid belt where you're mining asteroids and stuff, or you can take this virtual world route. And so you could have two characters that are from different worlds and they have to work together to physically and virtually go in and out of the virtual world like a heist movie. You could have all sorts of adventures and space battles and like virtual worlds, historical revisionism and time travel and glitches and all sorts of stuff. But again, we get these stupid swooping Ready Player One shots and he's like, oh, look, check it out. It's the grenade from Halo. Woo! I'm going to throw it at someone. Let's race. It's like Death Race. Is that the bike from Akira? I love that bike.
With the concepts that you're going that the movie's going forward with, the concept of a story about essentially a more advanced version of VR chat, I think that is it's a good premise, but it needs a lot more than what Ready Player One has.
We need a movie where it's just do you know the way? The way of the devil.
I don't think there's anything wrong with that premise. It's the way that the premise is executed. Kind of like the idea that there is no bad ideas, but there's going to be ideas which are much harder to implement, and the harder ideas to implement are more likely to be implemented very poorly. Which it's a hard idea, which they have implemented very poorly, making a bad film.
Mm-hmm.
All right, we're only 2.5 minutes in, guys. Let's get going.
It's embarrassing to read. Of this, Dan Nealon of the AV Club said, "It's a fantasy in which the hero is rewarded and praised for alienating themselves from the real world and dedicating an inordinate amount of time to absorbing pop culture. And not just any pop culture, but the very specific brand of pop culture that Klein himself is a fan of. When reading his lengthy descriptions of entry-level 80s video game references, it can sometimes feel like Klein's impetus for writing the book was simply to prove how much he knows about this stuff."
He's a geek. Essentially, he knows he's a geek. Yeah. He wants to talk about geeky things, and he decided to make a novel about it. That's his motivation. So.
Yeah.
It's like someone who spends 10 minutes asking a non-question at a Comic-Con panel just so they can show everyone what a fan they are. I wish I could say I thought of this myself, but someone once exclaimed that Ready Player One's enthusiastic rundown of everything that was ever briefly cool in the 1980s plays like a speech from Patrick Bateman in American
there it is.
Psycho.
I had no idea. Look at that. I only watched the first 2 minutes of this, so there you go. Uh-huh.
Is he trying to make...
Smud.
Is he trying to say that it's not a good moment in the film?
Well, okay. Again, when you read the book, as well as the Ready Player One book, they have they have a whole section dedicated to masturbation in Ready Player One. And it sounds bizarre, but you get where he's coming from. You have to understand the context. And if you don't, then you're going to hate it, of course. So Renegade Cut's like, well, I'm not going to believe in this or understand the concept. I'm just going to bash on it because it's a bad book in general. It's like, fine. But you can still pick apart elements and say, I understand why this was done. And if it was effective for you, great. If not, explain why.
Running down mediocre entertainment, except that we are supposed to understand that this makes Bateman shallow in American Psycho.
No, not at all. He likes the music.
Yeah.
He's not... There's nothing wrong with liking music and the story behind it and all the musicians and how they came to be. Like, he's really obsessive with those bands, but who isn't when they like a band? When they find...
he's a shallow person, but specifically in this moment, in the context of what he's talking about, that's something he does care about and enjoy.
He's quite passionate about it. Yeah.
Dylan had a pretty funny thing. Yeah, there's a whole chapter about masturbation. You really get where he's coming from.
Oh, no.
Funny.
In Ready Player One, we are supposed to think Parzival is elite, and if you get these references, you are too. The novel is nauseating at times.
I don't think so.
Well, no, it's more like, oh look, they're using a Halo rifle. Oh look, it's Freddy Krueger. Oh look, it's this. It doesn't require you to know all these references to enjoy the film.
Yeah.
It's not a film asking you trivia. It's more like, hey, here's a thing. And then if you're someone who doesn't get the thing, it doesn't mean anything. But if it's something you do get the thing, it clicks some nostalgia in there, and that's what the film is going for. It's trying to say, oh, look, if you can spot this thing, you feel good about yourself because you remember that thing, and you've got an emotional attachment to that Halo rifle that you played in Halo.
Yeah, plus
He's a
the
lead
references in the book are nowhere near as numerous as they are in the movie. So,
So him being elite, him being good at what he does is part of his character. That's kind of necessary. There, you have to be good at something.
It's in a lot of stories that a hero is good at a certain thing.
Well, you got to be. If you're going to be a hero, you have to be competent. Unless you're a Mary Sue.
I think
I don't.
The character.
I don't think
in
he's
the
a Mary
story-
Sue. Ironically, I think Ernest Cline invented a character that like should be a Mary Sue in his own universe, but he's he is perfectly scaled with his universe's intelligence level.
It's kind of hard
level.
to gauge a Mary Sue in this universe because everyone's playing this VR. So it's like, okay, everyone's using it. Everyone can drive really fast. Everyone can do this or that. What makes him better? And there's really not much. He just happens to win. That's the contrivance, though. It's not so much his skills. It's just other people crash into each other.
Isn't it more or at least in the film, it's more he goes backwards and then he gets the first egg, which puts him ahead of everyone else because he knows the what's it called, the riddle or whatever's put forward to him before anyone else.
You could argue
So
that
it's more like you're allowed a small amount of contrivance within the start of the film, and then you're allowed less as it goes on. I think that beginning part is as stupid as you just go backwards. The idea of him not being much different than everyone else, and then he gets the first clue. That's your small amount of convince you're allowed. It's the way it's been implemented that's the problem.
I think the inciting incident has to be prevalent and obvious that, oh, this is a thing that's going to happen, whether it's for chance or because he has some inspiration. It doesn't really matter so long as it's there and it makes sense. So to us, we see that like, oh, yeah, anyone could have done that. Why haven't they after all this time this game has been played? So that's the problem there for believability. But for someone to do that and win is like, okay, that's fine. It's not a big deal. There's all sorts of hidden stuff in video games like that anyway. So it's just too common. That's the problem.
There's a super chat.
Mad Courier 6. Thank you, sir. Is there an actual difference between a Mary Sue and Gary Sue or Gary Stu? No, there's not. Or is it just another gender? It's just the name we use. So people can call this guy, the main character, a Gary Stu, and they might have arguments for it. But it's like this sort of story is a giant virtual world. Okay, I can suspend disbelief pretty far when everything's virtual. Okay, when you're in a dream world, when you're in a magical fantasy land, when you're doing something in VR or a holodeck, it's like, okay, whatever, physics, I don't care. There's lots of things.
I do know some people define Mary Sue and Gary Stu differently, and I think one of those people is definitely ER.
I know.
I personally don't define them differently.
Yeah.
I kind of put them in the same category, mean the same thing.
When we talk
ER,
about
when he defines Gary Stu, I can't say the exact definition, but he says that there's something different about it, blah, 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 which means it's not quite as bad as a Mary Sue, but you'd have to refer to his video to know what he's on about. It's a long time since I
we
watched
use
it.
it colloquially, so it doesn't really make a difference to the gender. So it really matters of what context and all the rating system we use to gauge a Mary Sue. Is it a fan insert? Is it a writer on board moment? What are these other elements aside from the obvious? So that's what we look at under the covers. We just don't say, oh, he's overpowered, he does everything right, everyone likes him. Not everyone likes him in this. So there are flavors to it. There's always ranges.
But I have to admit that part of me enjoyed a handful of the chapters. And why wouldn't I? I grew up in the 80s. I like Vaporwave. It's not all bad, right? The movie is significantly worse. The perfect hacker geek girl fantasy love story feels like self-insert fanfiction in the novel, but at least it builds the way one expects it to. In the movie, Artemis is revealed early on, and when Parzival tells her that he loves her on their first date, with hardly any interaction beforehand,
I think
it
he gets
feels
kickback for that in the
forced.
story.
It's bogus
I
and cheap, and I'm not a fan.
I agree it's forced, but I think that's something that the film kind of makes a point of, that it's not something that you're supposed to do, because I think she takes note of, no, that's, you shut up. And then it's also picked up by his best friend at the same time. So I don't think that's something that the film is trying to portray as a positive thing that was right to do.
But it does add to the character of the protagonist to act naively and innocently towards women, and to the story in general.
To not really get women.
Well, to not really get stuff in general. Yeah, he's a kid.
It was a cringe moment. I definitely cringed at it, but I think the story is trying to portray, you're right, it's more naive, and it's not something which is, I don't know.
Fan. The movie does solve a couple of the bugs in the novel. The Japanese characters in the novel are written as stereotypical caricatures, but there is less of that in the movie. Also, the screenplay wisely excised a transphobic comment made by Parzival in the novel, but that's not entirely what I want to talk about today.
A transphobic comment?
About Gamergate. Gamergate was a movement created predominantly by men who used a private matter that was none of their business.
Okay, so what about the whole "I'm not your shield" kind of thing, which happened with Gamergate?
How did we get from this? We just jumped straight into Gamergate. Just boom. It's like, okay.
So, what it's kind of going from, because if you ask someone who's pro Gamergate, the perspective they were on, it was very much the perspective against gaming journalism, as they were all trying to create a narrative working together. If you talk to someone who's against Gamergate, they would always go to the inciting incident, which was someone, Zoe Quinn, about like the cheating going on and the rumors and all that kind of stuff, and that they're trying to incite that the exact same thing. The inciting incident was part of Gamergate, when it was more Gamergate was a reaction to the what was happening in journalism, where they were all trying to work together to create a narrative, and then journalists tried to stamp those people as also being responsible for the rumors.
So
the harassment.
I don't know. I don't know who this guy is specifically on the camera. I think this is Davis Sorini, but I don't think of Davis Sorini when I think of Gamergate. So maybe he's talking about people who are taking over the hashtag and using it for their own reasons. That's possible, but not the best comparison.
As all of the evidence that they needed that geek culture was being taken away from them, even though their declaration of ownership was always tenuous and presumptuous at best. Fundamentally speaking, it was not a movement for greater ethics.
All right, so this is one of my friends. The reason why he's targeting these two people is they did make a film on Anita Sarkeesian called The Sarkeesian Effect. So he didn't actually do any homework of what Gamergate was, because there probably isn't much to look at in terms of a leader or a representative. So he just took these two guys.
So, because I'm not very well educated on this myself, what is Gamergate?
It's a hashtag.
Me and those who may not know in the audience.
I'll let you explain.
No, go ahead. I mean, what I was going to say is that when I was there, it started out in 2014. There was two events that are really the biggest events. One is this thing where there was a chat group called Game Journal Pros. It was all these Polygon Kotaku people. They were doing all this back channel stuff, very similar at the time to the Comicsgate beginnings with the milkshake photo. This inner group of gaming journalist people that all conspired, say, hey, this person sucks, let's get him out of here, that kind of thing. And then they were giving, there were then accusations about a bunch of people for favorable coverage, because there's this thing called the Zoe Post that came out. And it was this guy named Aaron Gajoni. I don't know how to pronounce his name even now. But the point is that he was going out with this woman named Zoe Quinn at the time. She cheated on him with like 5 guys. A lot of them were game journalists or game professionals or something. And people were saying that she gained favorable coverage for it. And people took that as like a scarlet letter. It's a harassment on women campaign. And really it was just, this was a proof that all of these people knew each other. And they all wanted to have this little insular community where they could have an opinion on things. And you had all sorts of ridiculous Kotaku articles at the time, like how certain things were like insensitive to people that had traumatic experiences and all of this same social justice stuff that you've seen everywhere. And that was what Gamergate was. And for some reason, people can't get over the fact that Gamergate happened. And they still reference it. I don't know why it's still relevant today. Like, everybody knows now gaming journalism is crap, and YouTube has basically replaced it. Everybody just goes to somebody for an opinion.
Gaming journalists are already dead, so we don't really care about them or worry about them. A lot of the people who are actively involved with Gamergate have slowly kind of disappeared.
So it's almost like a slur or an insult at this point to refer to someone as
it's more like something they're trying to what's the best way to describe it?
I love how people in chat are recommending I go watch stuff like PSA Sitch's video regarding Gamergate. You do realise I'm in a podcast right now. I can't actively leave to go away and brush up on research when I got 4 perfectly reasonable gentlemen here that can explain it to me, chat.
When I spent all that time, what was the point of spending all that time researching it and watching it happen and watching all the Mr. Medica videos and all that shit at the time and having fun Twitter shitting all over it? What was the point of that? Well, to inform voice right now.
Essentially, the best way of describing this to your voice of why people keep trying to bring up Gamergate is to essentially poison the well, because when some political people have an idea of Gamergate, it's a horrible sexist male movement, blah 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 blah. There was a certain thing, a hashtag Not Your Shield, where it was minorities and women who would actively take a photo of themselves, and they would say, "I'm not hashtag Not Your Shield," in saying, "Look, you can't hide behind me. I'm actively pro Gamergate." So they like to ignore that, and they like to try and post, because of this idea which I explained of them being sexist men. They want to try and use that to post anyone else as being tangential to that. And if you're tangential to that, that means that you're also racist, you're also sexist, you're also just a group of men, which is kind of why we see it a lot with Comicsgate, where Comicsgate is trying to be, they're trying to post Comicsgate as being this horrible system movement to Gamergate, when they have nothing between them. There is no correlation or even a direct connection. A lot of the YouTubers which are active in Comicsgate have nothing to do with Gamergate.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, I forgot to mention that a lot of the mainstream journalists were just basically taking money or taking gifts and flying out and palling around with people to give favorable reviews. That was like the unspoken deal.
Okay.
Now that's not out of the norm, but that's not journalism.
They were also planning the release of, like, they would time all of their releases of a review or an opinion piece and all talk about the same things.
Yeah, I do remember a bit.
Yeah.
They're coordinating certain, so if they try to create a narrative, they would all coordinate the narrative to try and sway people's perspectives. Like, they would all make narratives against a certain company or against a certain game, which they found to be problematic, or this, that, the other.
You're like conspiring.
Mm-hmm. It's kind of like a less, not quite as bad a version of the Whisper Network, which we were going over with Comicsgate, because it wasn't part of the industry. The Whisper Network is actively part of the comics industry.
In video game journalism, the laughable cry of the propagandist. It was a classic.
The laughable. What the hell are you, sir?
Culture war. It was about who gets to be a gamer, and the notion that anyone who dared to claim that gamer culture has toxic elements was fair game for menacing attacks, ironically proving the existence of the toxic.
Calling it toxic is basically like saying, look, gamer culture has bad elements. And you say, yeah, okay. You're saying that we're defending the toxic elements. That's a slanderous accusation.
A very good example to go to is obviously Anita Sarkeesian. A lot of people rightfully criticized Anita Sarkeesian because she would actively, completely misrepresent gaming. Completely. Like she hadn't even played it.
Yeah, because you know where she came from? She was a multi-level marketer before that. So her whole thing was trying to get people involved based on a pyramid scheme. That's what she invented.
There are actually
allegedly.
There's very funny clips of Anita Sarkeesian before she started being involved with her whole feminist frequency channel, of her saying, "Well, I'm not a gamer. I've never played a game," and then quickly the narrative changes around later when she starts doing feminist frequency, where saying that she's always played video games. So it's kind of, you kind of see what I get from, where she doesn't really understand the game that she often talks about, and she was, I think, it's a grifter essentially. She raised so much money and then produced next to no content. She promised content on a weekly basis. She gave it monthly, and the amount of money that she was receiving from donations was next to nothing of the production quality of her actual videos. The production quality of videos was next to nothing. It, like, very little went into the videos themselves. You get more effort into, I don't know, who's a YouTube. I don't know. I'm trying to think of a channel right now. I can't think of any off the top of my head. But essentially, it was just very poor. The money she was getting didn't align to what she was producing. There we go. But the reason why people criticized Anita Sarkeesian is because she was making all these inflammatory statements, and that they've rebutted those statements. There's nothing wrong with saying that statements are false when they can be proven to be false very easily.
Elements that gamers did not want to admit were there. In 2011, when the Ready Player One novel debuted at your local brick-and-mortar bookstore that definitely is not there anymore, gamer culture and geek culture in general both did have their shares of toxicity. One example being gatekeeping, the act of forcing so-called outsiders to prove their worthiness or knowledge in order to participate in the narrative surrounding their geek obsession. These so-called outsiders to geek culture are invariably women, people of color, and other marginalized...
No. I don't say no. Because I'll admit that there are elements of certain fandoms which do engage in gatekeeping, essentially. But that's not what a majority of the fandom does. In fact, a lot of fandoms you can find, they love anyone who's ready to come and talk about what they love, what they care about. That can be their girlfriend or anyone they just meet, or, you know, just girls, boys, blacks, white, Asians. It doesn't matter, because people love to talk about what they care about. But you do get a toxic element, which is this gatekeeping element. It's not big enough. It's nothing more than something you shouldn't pay mind or attention to.
This is all the premise that using the hashtag on Twitter, there were people who were bashing it or attacking others while speaking on behalf. So you get this big horde of people attacking someone on Twitter, which happens on every social platform, and they always associate it with the gamer bros or the Gamergate people from 4 years ago, whatever. So it's this silly thing that hasn't gone away, not because the Gamergate people or the people who actually care about games want it to go away. They don't care. They just keep bringing it up to symbolize or to represent or to point at toxic masculinity or people who hate others online or any other derivative term they'll use, which is almost meaningless at this point.
People who pop culture did not often portray as geeks, even though they have been this whole time. But in 2011, gatekeeping was barely understood, and among those who did, perhaps mistakenly seen more as an annoyance than anything else. In 2011, when Ready Player One hit the stores,
yes, because it is nothing more than
Gamergate.
annoyance.
We were so naive then. Harassment in the geek community still existed online in 2011, just ask literally any woman, but most men...
Okay, there are plenty of women online who have not been harassed, in terms of sexually anyway.
What's their number? No, I'm just kidding.
It's part of like the whole victim mentality of if you are this, that, or the other, you're automatically facing some kind of oppression.
If you haven't been harassed online yet, you haven't been online yet. So time to get up there, guys. Come on. Time to piss someone. Have an opinion. How's that? Just make an opinion. Someone will harass you online. That's how it works. So Here's Mr. X. Thank you, sir. It sounds like Cut failed to get a reference 10 years ago, got teased for it, and now he's taking revenge. That's good. I'm not sure. He's kind of misrepresenting a bit of this, and now he's talking about the victims, so-called, who have been said bad words, for the most part, online.
About it or chose to ignore it. So, at the time of the novel's debut, the adventures of Parzival seemed like a harmless bit of escapism. Gamergate wasn't a thing. Ready Player One was a big bag of whatever. Like, it was fine because we were ignorant, or for some it just simply flew under the radar. The modern backlash of the last
This
couple
film was
years
2018,
is a product
wasn't
of
it?
greater knowledge about a topic.
He's talking
also
about the
because
book.
Not everyone bothered to read it.
Okay.
So he's talking about when the book was originally made, it was not Gamergate wasn't a thing, but now when the film was made, it is a thing.
Just whatever you can to try and tie the two things together so you can elude people into thinking you have a topic for this video.
In 2011. I didn't read Ready Player One until this year, and reading it in 2018 feels
I
like
never
a
did.
remarkably different experience from reading it before the establishment of the alt-right. I can understand being into Ready Player
Okay.
One back then. Like I said, there were parts of the novel and even the movie that really tugged on my nostalgic heartstrings. Nobody loves 1983 adventure movie Krull more than I do, and seeing the glaive in a movie from 2018 was a genuine treat / guilty pleasure. But most of the time, the uncomfortable element of both the novel and the movie blasted in my ears like an air horn.
What was the uncomfortable element, sir?
It was too loud, and I couldn't ignore it. Ready Player One, however, makes a firm decision to ignore it. In the novel, the biggest downside to being a geek is the author's occasional admission that too much pop culture can get in the way of a social life, but that point is eradicated in the end.
What do you mean eradicated in the end? It keeps supporting that notion, just very retardedly.
Too much focus on anything can result in a lack of a social life. Hell, you could be focused on multiple things at once, but still not have a social life.
There is such a thing as too much of a good thing. So a good amount of anything is good, obviously good for you. Too much of it is bad. Too little of it's bad. So you just got to have a balance with everything in life. It's just a balance.
It's not intrinsically tied into a focus of pop culture, which kind of makes, I think, the point he's about to make fall apart.
And when Parzival, true to all 80s movie heroes, gets the girl as a trophy, the biggest downside
It's not a
to being
trophy.
geek in the film is the same, except that Parzival gets the girl even earlier. In both versions, he becomes the most important and beloved figure on Earth. The movie
Because he's now the
makes
owner
case that we
of
need to get
the
outside a
Oasis,
little
which
bit
is
more.
stupid, but
This
that's
is done
still
in
in
a
the story.
voiceover monologue near the tail
What's wrong
end
with being
of
a
the
hero?
film, but when every minute of the movie up until that point makes staying inside, gaming, and being obsessed with Atari look so cool, this lesson just feels tacked on. There is absolutely...
Sorry, what lesson is he referring to?
He's talking about the lesson of putting virtual reality down or media down and having a real life.
I'd also like to point out that earning a woman's respect does not mean... respect to the point that she actually wants to be with you does not mean you have her as a trophy.
Okay, so this is the social world, whether you're playing... Okay, imagine it's not a VR game. Imagine you're just going out to the disco or pick any club, anything you like, right? That's a social life, right? You're socializing with people, you're interacting with them. That's how you do it in this future. So is he referring to actually like getting a job and like raising kids, or like what is he referring to? What is the downside? What is the thing you should be doing?
absolutely nothing leading up to this message in terms of the given themes of the film. It's a band-aid on an open wound. Don't think about the dangerous aspects of obsessive geek culture, everyone. Just watch all the Back to the Future references.
Okay, so now he's complaining because there's so much nostalgia and stuff to reference. It's dangerous?
I think he's trying to say it's getting in the way of the message of the film, but then again, a lot of the nostalgia references are often in the background, or if in the forefront, they're very short references.
What was the point of the Gamergate topic being brought up? He didn't really bring that to a conclusion unless he's going to bring these two things full circle together somehow.
Well,
he just sort of trailed off and went into a different subject, or did I miss something?
No, he just brought it up and just dropped it at the same amount of effort. So
it felt like he just brought it up for the sake of bringing it up.
Yeah.
Here's a little bit of advice. If you're going to go out of your way to show the footage of people that you believe represent Gamergate, what's the point on putting black squares over their eyes?
These are like publicly accessible videos that anyone can find anyway.
Exactly. Why
It's
would
not like
something you want to hide?
it's not like Slagging of a card is actively hiding his face.
It is almost as weird as Hello Greedo having a face cam but still wearing a helmet.
What are you trying to say about Helmet's voice?
Hmm?
What are you trying to say about helmets?
Nothing. It's just if you have a
my helmet,
you have a face cam, show your face.
Well, the next thing Shiny has to do is write a book about himself.
What if your helmet is your face?
Go.
What about that? Maybe there's nothing under that helmet. You don't know.
That's some lore.
Geek loser, but it is actually because he is a geek loser that this happens.
Okay, so if
he calls him a loser.
If this is a good thing in the story, what's the problem?
What's wrong with wasn't it the Bible that said the meek shall inherit the earth? What's wrong with having a geek win the day and be good at it? And the whole point is that he's good at the thing that everybody's involved in, isn't? And then the point of the movie is that he's trying to awaken everybody or something. Like, it's good, but don't be too caught up in it. Like,
yeah,
it's a stupid book, it's a stupid movie, but what is that doesn't make it so that his nerdiness is a bad thing for him. It all seems to work out.
There are plenty of stories.
Having a large array of contacts with people across the potential globe that you share in this one event of playing video games. Who's to say that's not a social life in some form? You are, by definition, you are socializing with people you would never meet otherwise.
Exactly. And who's to say that these things, like there's so many stories of people doing the thing that like you get bullied for doing something, guys who like arts and crafts or knitting or what have you, and there's stories of them doing well, getting friends in a social circle, doing the same things they're passionate about. What's wrong with a story like that? That's a good story. That's getting you out of your rut of feeling you're alone and you have no friends because you like this thing that no one else likes, and all of a sudden you go online and start talking about it and you have hundreds of people who want to listen to you and share ideas. That's a good story. There's nothing wrong with being a geek loser, okay?
Ready Player One is not a story about someone overcoming a dangerous obsession to be a winner. It is a story about someone using his dangerous obsession to be a winner.
How is it? Okay, is this a dangerous obsession in the story and in the movie? I don't think so. This is a part
in the context of the film. This is normal for people to be part of the Oasis.
It's like everyone has a cell phone, or everyone is on MSN Messenger, or what have you. It's that sort of thing. Everyone's using it.
Mm-hmm. In fact, it's created an entire economy, as I said before. People make their entire livings in the world. They're still actively moving around and being fit and exercising. It's essentially living real life, but in, I don't know, a virtual world, like living in the holodeck forever.
And that is a nuclear take in 2018. Ready Player One tells obsessive gamers, those who are more likely to be sympathetic to the aforementioned toxic elements of the culture than not, that they not only matter, but might be the most important people on Earth.
Okay, obsessive gamers, what is this? Like, if you have an obsession or problem...
this explains why he was trying to tie them to Gamergate. He's trying to paint the characters of this film as a representative of modern-day Gamergate, despite the fact Gamergate hasn't been a thing for the last 5 years, and then he's going out of his way to try and call the people that he has linked to Gamergate in this film losers.
I don't think obsessive gamers would watch something like this, and if they did, they'd laugh at it. Because they'd be so skilled in gaming, they'd be like, this is not a proper rendition of a rifle from Halo. What are you talking about? This is garbage.
You see, The actual rifle from Halo fires at a much faster rate, and the bullets are not even that tint of yellow.
Yeah, something like that. It would be like, "Puh," and then they go back to gaming because they're obsessed about it. So, I'm sorry they don't get the nuance that you're trying to share with us there, Renegade Cut.
Masturbation has never been as dangerous. Near the end of the novel,
Oh, talk about masturbation. Here we go.
Parzival must recite all the words to Monty Python and the Holy Grail in order to proceed in his quest.
Okay, now, if you guys don't get this, this is actually a quote or reference to one of his slam poetry skits. So he actually says the geek wants out. We want to recite every line from Monty Python. Like, this is literally what he says 20 years ago. So this is like classic Ernie Klein. So to throw that into his book is like a no-brainer. Whether that's clever, whether that's a good storytelling idea, is up to you. But it's like the guy who never shuts up about airplanes writes a book about airplanes. Like, yeah, no kidding.
Frankly, this is something that I can do too. I loved that movie when I was a kid, and I still think it holds up pretty well. But my knowledge of every line from Holy Grail is not significant. It's trivia. We are hobbyists, not heroes.
Okay.
Why?
Okay. So
I'm the hero of mine. That's bullshit, man.
he wrote a
I'm the hero of
story.
my story, motherfucker.
He wrote a story about a hobbyist being a hero. What is wrong with that? I don't
Yeah.
see the problem.
Well, if
What
you
kind
write
of
a
criticism
story
is this?
about a golfer who wins a world golfing tournament, like that's a hobby. So what? It becomes the important part of the story. It's something that's important to overcome. There's lots of people who do care about golf, so they would be they'd be amazed at this person who's the best in the world at golfing.
Yeah, it's the same with your teachers or your instructors saying, you got to get a real job, you got to go to school, or I really like playing hockey, or I really like making arts and crafts, I really like using my hands, and you just keep doing that thing, and you get so good at it, you eventually make a career out of that, or a life out of that. That's a good thing.
I'm trying to make a career out of my hobby. So what? My hobby was initially visual effects, and then I'm now going to university for it. That's making a career.
What do you think Renegade Cut's
My
doing
hobby
with
is
his
Marxism, and it doesn't matter. It's trivia. It's not real.
Well, Renegade Cut, this is ironic, because Renegade Cut's probably doing rather decently on YouTube. He gets like hundreds of thousands of views on his videos.
He's one of the best capitalists I've ever seen. Really just raking in the dough there. Advertising on YouTube.
How ironic, huh?
He's part of a corporate propaganda machine. He's a great capitalist, just like Mad Men. I'm inspired by Renegade Cut.
This part of the novel and other parts to showcase Parzival's knowledge are meant to empower the reader. But when geek culture is empowered without also being critical of it, the message becomes too intense, and it bolsters the bad parts of geek culture.
What is he talking? He sounds like one of those text-to-speech guys. Like, when this happens, this is what occurs to geek culture. It's like, dude, what are you? Can you speak like a person and tell us what you think? This is...
So... You're not allowed to praise anything in geek culture unless you're also criticizing it. But what if there's anything to criticize? I mean, what if there's elements to criticize is not what you're not relevant?
What is
Or
bad
what if
about
they're
liking
too
video
small?
games? Like, what's exactly bad about that? Aside from being obsessed about any topic. It's a strange argument. It's like, yeah, in this movie, there's lots of references to squirrels. It's like, okay, is that bad? Is that good? It's just a squirrel. Like, what's the problem? Or bird watching, or anything on the Sahara. Like, what's wrong with wildlife? Pick any topic that you could be a hobbyist at. There are bad elements to that hobby. It's like, sure. Do they showcase those? No.
With the good parts at the same time, and never differentiates between the two. To use video game parlance, Ready Player One is a power-up that increases all the stats of geek culture, including the bad ones.
What?
What's a bad stat? Tell me a bad
does
stat.
that mean?
It's not actively promoting the toxic elements of gaming culture.
What?
I'm so
Name
confused.
name a negative of gaming culture that it's legitimately like piping up, and you're gonna say people who are knowledgeable about like stuff, and it's like, well, what's wrong with being knowledgeable about things? It's
Remember
like,
in Ready Player One?
Well, this is all that leads to gatekeeping. Well, no, it doesn't. It's just being knowledgeable about something, and the game has nothing to do with gatekeeping. It's merely about, I don't know, hunting eggs to win a company. It's stupid, I know, but that's still the story. It's so weird when you have a bad film and people don't criticize it for the right things. There are so many things to criticize and talk about within the story, but they go after these wild takes just off a whim, flying off into the distance. Is like, that's completely off target.
I remember that time in Ready Player One where they were on Twitter and they were saying, "Get out of here, you grifter! You don't know anything about video games. Stop saying we're sexist." And then
they were harassing women actively all the time.
Well, yeah.
And
remember in the lobby when they have the FPS scene and everybody's calling each other the N-word and talking shit in a humorous thing, and then there's somebody screaming in the background.
They all jump on Discord and they all have their alt-right group.
There's a bunch of kids screaming in the background of someone's microphone.
Here's Joe
Mom,
Crazy.
I'm trying to play Halo.
Renegade.
Someone sends the guy a message. It's got like a, "I'm gonna kick your ass in real life, kid." Yeah.
I can imagine Thor already, like, so I'm gonna find you, noob master, and I'm gonna kill you. I'm the god of lightning.
Here's Joe Crazy. Renegade Cut is what you get when Mark Zuckerberg's left testicle gains sentience.
That's oddly specific.
Yeah, I don't know.
I thought Mark Zuckerberg was a robot. I didn't think he had testicles.
I still have to think about that one, sir, but thank you. Anyway, back to the show.
Had been more critical of the toxic elements of geek culture.
What toxic elements? Show us in the movie.
While empowering geeks about the purely positive elements of the culture, that would be one thing. But it doesn't. It actively avoids any self-reflection, and it explicitly engages in gatekeeping. In one chapter, Parzival and H deride a bully for not knowing enough about Atari to be a real gamer, and the book itself is an exercise in said gatekeeping, expecting the reader to spot all the references or else become lost. Gamergate is the elephant in the room when discussing Ready Player One in 2018, and as uncomfortable as it is to talk about, and as much as even saying the word makes the speaker a target, it needs to be said.
How?
Whatever Gamergate's origins were, it quickly became almost exclusively centered on harassment campaigns, graphic rape,
really? Against who?
And good old-fashioned bad takes
Women.
on social media about
bad takes?
SJWs
like what?
ruining video games. Gaming,
SJWs do ruin video games.
Is the biggest entertainment monolith on Earth, and it cannot possibly be damaged in any meaningful way by someone having the audacity to say that you should not call women the C word when you play them in Call of Duty.
Cunts? Is that what you meant?
Targets of harassment were primarily.
You realize that when you're playing games which actively have voice chats, there are going to be people who say things, and if you're upset that people say meany things, then maybe you shouldn't be playing a game with a voice chat, or maybe you should just disable it.
No, freedom of speech is not allowed. You must be nice to everybody on the internet all the time, because that's the culture we want to foster, and if you go against that, you're going to jail.
You know what? There are toxic twats on video games that are twats. So what? They're not important. They're not important at all. They
you
are
can mute people.
Yeah, you can mute people, you can block people, and you don't even have to listen to voice chat. In fact, whenever I play, I played Team Fortress 2 because I never played Team Fortress. I don't play Team Fortress 2 these days. Who plays Team Fortress 2 these in 2020? But back when I did, I always turned off the voice chat because it was always some kid or it was some fuckers who I didn't even want to talk to. I was like, I just want to play.
Because I was yelling in chat. You're like, who is this random guy in TF2 yelling about being a scout? Oh, that was Glib in 2013.
Who's being the medic that's jumping in the fucking demo man's explosions and running into the heavy's weapons? It's like just
need a dispenser here. Need a dispenser here. Need a dispenser here.
when you get a team of like 7 snipers, it's like you can't all be support class.
Put dispenser here. The toxic elements of gaming. Spamming voice chat.
The toxic elements of gaming are all those people that play sniper at once, and that means you to ruin the match because you don't have a balanced team. You fuckers.
So you know what a toxic gaming culture is. If anybody here remembers Battlefield 2, you could spot enemies, and you had the commander position that could spot enemies. So people would get points by spotting enemies from the commander position, but it would play a voice line every single time somebody was targeted on the map. So it'd be like, enemy spotted over there, enemy spotted over the enemy spotted over the enemy spotted over the whole time you're playing the game. That's toxic gaming culture right there.
People being twats.
Calling somebody here's the thing. They walk in and they walk behind women, right? They're like,
you can't say we're stupid and you can't say our video game ideas are bad because, look, we're hiding behind the women and you can't call women bad names. Oh, we can't call them bad names, send them death threat.
Can you prove that? Can you prove, sir, that they sent that death threat, or maybe they sent it to themselves? Who here got a death threat? Prove it.
Do you remember the cringe of bully hunters? Does anyone remember bully hunters?
That was like last week, right?
It was a team of female gamers who would actively respond like the fucking police. You would call them up about something which was happening in a match of Call of Duty or whatever game, and they would get these female pro players to jump into the match and kill the person who was being mean. But in what was it, Counter-Strike specifically, you can't hear what the other team is saying in the voice chat. So that was it was an all stage thing of the enemy team saying something mean and teabagging this female player, and then they had someone log into the game. And what if the lobby's full? And that's kind of a problem. And then they came and they quotation marks skillfully took out this player, said once harassment in video games is not a joke, and then logged off after killing someone once. How is that going to change anything? It's incredibly contrived because this person was just sitting there doing nothing.
Were primarily people who were interested in performing alternative critiques of video games or designing games with women, people of color, and the disabled in mind.
There we go.
For these sins, angry geeks brandished their knives.
Let's stab those non-gamers! Get out of here, girls!
Pro Gamergate because it couldn't possibly be without a time machine. It's
annoying when they actively try to use minorities or women as a shield for their shit propaganda and their shit games and their shit movies.
Why are you trying to stop Marxism infesting your game thing? Do you hate women? Wait, what? How does that work?
It starts off as I'm trying to think. They tried to push a very poorly made thing, a poorly made game, for example, and they just fill it with women and they fill it with minorities, even though it doesn't make sense for the context of the story, being the French line example in World War II or anything like that. And then they put female, crippled, disabled people into the battlefield, and almost immediately that becomes a defense for the film. You're trying to hide behind a shield of minorities and disabled and women, and you can no longer criticize this game anymore, even if it's for the good reasons. Like it's like this is not historically accurate, or the gameplay is bad, or the story's crap, or this is not an accurate representation of historical events when you're going over these certain stories.
I don't think anyone's ever going to care if someone bashes a game like Gone Home or any of those other weird experimental things just because they don't like it. I can't see anyone accusing someone of being a Gamergater or anything of that context, because it's just one guy's random opinion, and nor is it an element of discussion that you would say, oh, well, this person said bad things about this game to some person on Twitter, therefore they're a member of the alt-right or this or that. It's kind of silly just to hear a bunch of passionate fans who don't like something.
Everyone I don't like is alt-right.
I don't know. It's silly. Here's Todd Howard. Hey, Smud, it's Crumb from Patreon. How's it going? Just want to wish you a good day. Okay, well, thank you very much. Here's Taker610. You've been killed by the smuggy cunters. Da-da. Yeah, I don't know what that was about. I really don't know. But Shiny was explaining. He was like, yeah, that's about it. It's pretty much lasted for about 2 weeks, and everyone was laughing at it.
I don't understand why. What is that special about that word that is like so offensive? That seemed to be like made up. You know what I mean?
What word? What's offensive?
Saying cunt.
Cut. The thing is,
like,
if you talk to anyone in Britain or anyone in Australia, they don't really think much of the word cunt. Or at least in my area of North Yorkshire.
That's what makes it so stupid.
It's like swearing to certain people in certain areas with certain sort of like subcultures. It's going to mean different things to different people. For example, there are some people who are really offended by the word fuck, but there are other people who really don't give two shits about it.
Oh, my family hate the word cunt. Or they did when they were alive. Fuck them.
Was your family a TV and an even older radio?
No, we were... It's sad.
It's just sad, Shiny.
Was one of them a microwave?
Yeah, no, that technology was not invented yet.
Well, what were they?
Funnily enough, I was a human before I became trapped in the radio.
I find that hard to believe. You're just a stupid clanker. You're just another clanker voice.
That's mean and racist, you Gamergate cuck.
Here's Joe Crazy. No,
droid lives don't matter.
Gamergate was just pissed that these game journals kept calling them all sorts of isms and phobes. I don't know, were they? I think we were laughing the entire time.
The games journalists were actively calling people isms and tisms all the time.
That happens every day now, so it's not a big deal anymore. So we don't care.
Just being called ism and tism, that's part of every day now.
Or fascist or Nazi, or it's keep going. We love all these titles. I don't know how we get them, but we get them.
2011, and Gamergate started in earnest around 2014. But it's so clueless and outdated only a few years after its release that a backlash was inevitable with the gift of hindsight. Ready Player One is a world in which a person's value is determined by their knowledge of pop culture, especially video games, and almost exclusively pop culture that was marketed to boys in the 1980s.
No.
The pop culture of the 80s that's built for girls like Gem and the Holograms, My Little Pony,
American... My Little Pony does exist in the Oasis, right? You do know that. It exists in... Everything exists there. Everything. I think My Little Pony is in there somewhere, but I wouldn't be surprised if there are like entire worlds dedicated to what women can be interested in. And it's not it does have a large portion of people in the context of the world. It does have a large portion of people who are actively interested in stuff like gaming. But that's only one segment of the entire thing, and that is what the story focuses on, because that is the focus of the main character, and that has everything to do with the main character. It's like if you focus on, in the real world, you focus on a girl who does ballet, the entire story is going to revolve around ballet. It doesn't mean the entire world is ballet. It's just that's what the story focuses on.
Interestingly enough, I was watching Gem and the Holograms 2 weeks ago, and 3 weeks ago as well with my niece. So it's never dead. It's never going away. We're always going to have beautiful media for kids, no matter what year. So...
Pony, American Barbie, The Babysitter's Club, and others are not present or accounted for in Ready Player One. No girls allowed.
It's not no girls allowed. There are active... What the fuck you on about? There are actively girls within the film. There's, I think, two of them which are in the main protagonist. One of which is the best friend, who turns out to be a black woman, and the other one which is the love interest. So there are women in the Oasis.
Aren't there like old women, old grannies playing in the Oasis as well?
Pardon?
Aren't there like old women playing in the Oasis as well?
Yeah. In fact, there was another scene of a woman on a street. I can't remember the age or the race or anything, but I specifically remember on one of the houses which the camera goes past, it's someone in the Oasis, and they're wearing into everything, and they're on a stripper pole. So the people, it's a whole world. It's a whole virtual world where people are doing absolutely anything.
I wonder where the 18 plus red light district is. Just a thought.
Oh, it's definitely there.
Everything's on the internet in that world. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge, say no more.
Chapter 3, and it's a conversation between Parzival and H using chick flick as an insult. The novel features a woman character or two, but they are only valuable because of their knowledge of pop culture marketed to men. Of course, women can and do love pop.
It's valuable because that's what the story is about. It's about gaming culture, and so what if the gaming culture was, and that's specifically what was talking about, was originally focused and marketed towards men? What if it was talking about something which was originally marketed towards girls? Would that also make it problematic?
It's a very strange argument considering the content of the story to say it's not geared towards women. And even if it wasn't, so what? Even if this was a story about women, would he be arguing it's not, there's not enough men being represented because they're in the minority?
Again, there are lots of things to criticize this film for. Just criticize it for the right things, goddammit. And that's one of the things that I really don't like, when people don't criticize things for the right. They don't have, like, there's lots of valid criticism to go for, but they don't go for it. It's annoying. At least to me, anyway.
That were marketed primarily to men, sure, but the complete absence of pop culture marketed primarily to women in the novel is indicative of the lingering problem of how geek culture is viewed. The stuff of men, and some women, but only those who love so-called guy stuff, and only if they love it the right way. No criticizing it or talk of feminism, please.
If different things appeal to
Ready Player
different
One
people.
traffics in a false populism. The idea that gamers must take back their games from the corporations
Here it is.
not the worst sentiment in and of itself, but it's also about protecting games for the so-called real gamers. And who decides who are the real gamers? Mostly those who are in the majority, or those who have been traditionally labeled the stereotypical gamer over the past 30 years. It's not populism, it's elitism. Ready Player One is in love with the notion
Get out of here,
there
pleb.
are certain kinds of gamers that deserve to take pride in that name, and that others
Hell
are
yeah.
only pretenders. Fake geek
Gamer
girls,
pride worldwide.
posers, as the novel constantly cries. The process of establishing superiority over another
Okay,
group
Smud,
is
how
by
much of that do you want to
belittling
break down?
Well,
Well-
I want to just say something really quick about posers. So
Get 'em.
back in the day, I remember in the 1990s or whatever, in like early 2000s, skateboarding was pretty big. You know, it was the Tony Hawk era. All the X Games stuff that was going on. Everybody was jazzed about action sports, all of this junk. And on the street level, there was a lot of talk about people that were just adopting the clothing of the culture. They were adopting the mannerisms, the fashion, the perspective, the kind of activity, but they didn't skate or they didn't bike or whatever it was. And even if they did, there was like levels, like rollerbladers were never respected as much as skateboarders, and BMXers were always looked down on for destroying spots and stuff because they're heavy bikes and stuff. But posers, people that just wore the shoes but didn't skate, like, hey man, where's the scuff on your shoes? I don't see you practicing kickflips. Like, that was the whole thing. Because the people that are there to skate and to better themselves and like competitive and they want to be a part of a culture are there because they're a part of that club. That's the whole reason why the system in our society and in the history of civilization is that people rally around a skill set and they hold up the people that have the best examples of that skill set, or wow, look at this genius artist. He's so much better than me. I'm just an average artist. You know, I'm just learning in school. Like there is an elitism strain in culture, and it's what we uphold as the best. So if we have an exceptionalist problem here, I think that is just like his leftist problematic personality thing where he's like, oh no, what if there really are people that are insulated in this gamer thing, and we can't break into that somehow and apply our morals that don't match. Like, what if we don't want all you in video games? What if gamers don't have anything to do with you?
Gaming
why,
is...
and also, why are you assuming that is a video game system when anybody can log in at any time? Why are people gaslighting non-gamers into thinking that gamer culture is like, if you log on to this game, they're going to kick you out? You know, that's only people that are going to be pissed off that you're messing up your Arma match because you don't know how to operate the vehicles or whatever.
Right, and gaming is naturally competitive, so you expect people to be of a certain skill set or else they lose. And you're like, well, I don't want to play with this guy anymore on my team because he keeps screwing it up. So, of course, you're going to get people who are angry, emotional, enthusiastic, specialized, etc. So this is normal. This is pretty basic stuff. But it's toxic and bad because women aren't involved. Maybe because there's not too many women in gaming, at least playing.
Well, it's like the NBA thing.
But in the story, there are actually women who are involved with the story. There are lots of women in the background, and just as much as there are male characters in the background.
The girl character is actually better than him in a lot of ways.
I know. I was going to say, she's actually, if anything, she's the bigger source of knowledge in the film when it comes to like direction.
Yeah, people don't understand. I mean, I get why women don't get it, but the whole reason why guys to girls inquire and do the whole quizzing thing to women is like, oh my god, are you a real gamer girl? That's so awesome. They want someone to be on the same level as them, and that's the elitist angle that Renegade Cut doesn't understand. He could never elevate himself to the same level as these people around him, so he has to somehow equate them with being exclusionary to not let in the people that can't do it, you know?
I'd also point out that this doesn't just happen to women as well. It happens to a lot. If you go through a games workshop, it's now called Warhammer. If you go to a place like that, it is the worst kind of geeks. They don't just try and be, what was it, patronizing to anyone who's just is like a woman. It's everyone.
Yes.
I've actively went in there, and they've actively just been, oh, well, how well do you know Warhammer? It's like, well, I don't know. I'm just looking to buy a set so I can play with my friend. Well, I think that you should just leave me alone. But I don't think that you should be blah, 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 blah. And so I honestly don't care. They are actively just being dicks, and that is the kind of... I understand where Glib's coming from. There is kind of different kinds of types of people who do gatekeeping. They're the ones who do it to everyone who think, well, I'm obviously the best gamer. But then that's the more kind of toxic kind who do, again, it's not race or gender motivated. And then you do get the one which is kind of gender motivated, where what Glib was talking about, where they just don't know how to talk to women. It's like, oh my god, it's a geek girl. Oh, I want it to be my girlfriend, blah, 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 and try and be on the same level as them, etc., etc.
Game of Sutra's Leigh Alexander said of this, by the term...
Of course, choose Leigh Alexander, of course.
I was going to say, it's not even necessarily a social or political thing when that happens. It's just... maybe you inquiring about it because it's nice when you meet someone, especially a significant other who has interests that resonate with your own, especially if your interests are those that many people seen as either nerdy or unsightly or something, like if you're into video games or board games or comics. It based on the way that lots of people react to that, and depending on what your experience has been as a person, if people shun away from that kind of thing, when you meet someone who actually takes that interest, it's thrilling.
Yeah, I would completely agree. My longest relationship was shared with a woman who shared a lot of the same interests as I did. And it was probably one of the best relationships I ever had. So there is a huge value to having someone who shares a lot of the... It's not just with significant others, it's also with friends that you share a lot of passionate things about. You can grow a lot closer and become very good friends with them.
The fact that he's quoting one of the larger detractors of Gamergate is kind of telling, so we kind of know where his political mindset is. Of course, we already knew where it started, but we know exactly where it is now. So
Turn of the millennium, those were games' only main cultural signposts. Have money, have women, Get a gun and then a bigger
The
gun.
bigger gun.
Be
Being an outcast.
Celebrate
that.
Defeat
anyone who threatens you.
You don't
need cultural references.
You don't need anything but gaming. But when all you
By the way,
have is your subculture, and that
Gama Sutra, I don't think exists anymore, and I'm pretty sure Leigh Alexander has a lot to do with that. She was the editor, and she was a lot of the problem. And yeah, try and find out where she is now, guys.
subculture is threatened by change or by someone you see as an outsider, tribalism kicks in, and that leads to aggression. I know that.
What are you doing here? You're so stupid. You're not even a real gamer. Go home, gamer girl.
A lot of people like to have someone that they can identify, have similar passions with. So that for that reason, they will actively invite people into the fandom. It's why so many people take their girlfriends to Comic-Con, despite the fact that some of their girlfriends won't be interested.
It's not even like that you need to defend it. This dude is basically saying these things are all problematic, and he's trying to gatekeep everything through his lens, through leftism. He's trying to say everything that is on this side is bad. It's the subtle, niggling frustration at the back of the room, the giant elephant that's just staring at you slowly, wondering why you haven't mentioned Gamergate yet in the last 45 seconds.
Did you know that tribalism is bad? It's like, how is it bad? What? It's aggressive. How is it aggressive? What are you talking about?
People have differing opinions, and we sometimes don't want to be associated with people that we know have terrible opinions. Like, I do not want to be associated ever with Just Right, Patrick Willems' School of Movies, or any of those other people, or Movie Bob, or Saurian Cinema, because I never ever want to or have like my reputation sullied by association with them.
And yet you'll get people on Twitter asking you, well, aren't you just a theater graduate? Like, don't you know all these things? Like, no, I don't need to go to school to study film, whatever, to talk on the same level as these gentlemen. It's just not necessary. You really don't need to read their books either, or whatever they like reading, because it's not helpful. It doesn't add anything to the conversation. You're not learning anything. Because I don't even know half the crap that Renegade Cut's talking about. He's bringing up issues that don't exist. Tribalism is aggressive. Like, what?
Tribalism is aggressive.
Because as I offer what I think is reasonable criticism without much rancor, people within that subculture will lash out instead of engage and learn.
What's the difference?
Learn what? What's the problem? Lash out at what?
Yeah, I like how he says learn as if he can teach us, as if he doesn't need to be taught, as if the engagement isn't a discussion or a debate, as if we're not on equal ground to begin with, and then we stand before the harsh truth of the internet.
Yes, the people who use the hashtag are bad, and you have to know about it. It's like, okay, yeah, and it's a hashtag.
I'm going to educate you all on how problematic and how you're just worshiping capitalism, which is really just fascism in disguise. White man bad, orange man bad.
Stuff. Star Trek has been my thing since I was a kid. There is nothing.
Whoa! What? We're just jumping around, sir. What?
Okay.
So if he's
Star Trek has been my thing since I was a kid. So what?
Is he part of the Star Trek tribe? Is he aggressive to other people who aren't? Like, what? Are we fighting with the Star Wars?
Oh, no. Okay. Maybe he will explain himself. Let's see.
No, he won't. Come on. He just dropped that and changed topics. Look at that. He's on The Shining now.
Maybe, you never know.
So here's the thing. I fucking love Star Trek. It's my thing.
By the way, here's The Shining.
Inherently wrong with
obviously
loving
the best
a
film.
piece of pop culture, especially if it resonates with you on some deeper level. And you can read Ready Player One or watch the movie for it just being awesome too, sure. But
or
bear
shit.
in mind that the world of this story is not one in which gamers simply get to play a cool game, but a world...
Remember that this movie has a premise. Just remember, okay?
but a world in which gamers tell others that they aren't as cool as they are. Women are Xbox achievements, and only
No.
That is
Women are Xbox
so
achievements.
wrong.
Where?
That
When?
is so wrong.
Hey, chat, have you unlocked your girlfriend yet?
It's not. It's a
Level 25
like,
girlfriend.
That's factually wrong. That's factually wrong. It's
Yeah,
more
I
they
think-
bond over mutual interests. It's not very well written, but that's the base concept of their relationship. Done well? No. Is that what it is? Yes.
What? You're not a real gamer. You haven't unlocked a girlfriend yet. It's just an achievement, bro. Where's your 100% completion at?
My girlfriend's a tier 3. I'll have you
Yeah.
know.
What? How come you haven't prestiged your girlfriend yet? Got
How
new
come you
skin for
haven't
her?
taught her all the new skills?
Yeah, you're just not a real gamer. You don't have the
Well,
right
why haven't you evolved
sunglasses.
Why haven't you evolved your girlfriend yet?
Yeah, why don't you use the moonstone on her butt?
To make her a 3-star drop or something.
So crazy, just super chatted.
All right.
Achievement unlocked. Gamer girlfriend.
I love it.
That's
I
level
love it.
100. Also, want to point out that there's a difference between an Xbox achievement and a trophy, an award or a trophy, because an Xbox achievement is it basically nothing. It's hollow. It means nothing in the end, compared to was it a trophy quotation marks, which is something you actually get to keep and say, "Hey, look, it's amazing! I achieved this thing." One's actually a lot more physical than the other, but it's
Drake the Duelist, girlfriend, Digivolve 2, Wifeamon.
the whole thing does kind of come from like games like Mario, where the game was to save your love interest, and that's the entire story. But even I don't think that's even that problematic to go out and save someone that you care about.
But it's because they want strong, independent women.
It's also just a fantasy of people to be the hero, save the day, get the girl.
He's so
whole-
mad that this guy is a nerd and he's like a pop culture guy and he got a girlfriend in the video game. He's like,
Ooh.
you don't really
He's
care
freaking
about her.
rich.
You don't even have a relationship. You just unlocked her. He just dehumanized the girl. He just took away all of her agency. She's just an achievement. He basically is like, he looks at a pretty girl, you know what I mean, like a pretty woman and her husband, and he goes, I bet she's just a trophy wife, just because she's attractive, right? Just because she's something that's desirable, and he's trying to figure out a way to offset it. Oh no, he didn't actually have a romantic relationship. He just earned this girl as an achievement, even though that's literally not what happened in the movie at all, in any way.
straight white guy stuff matters. It's
Oh
not
my goodness!
inclusive if it's a world
Wow!
custom designed for the kind of gamer who
Wait, can you go back
tirelessly
to that? I
watches
need to
the
hear
game.
that in context again. Let me see that.
Yeah, please run back because I need to like reabsorb that.
Where are we with it?
Flesh out instead of engage and learn.
Okay, here we go.
World in
Let's
which
feel that
gamers
again, boys.
Tell others that they aren't as cool as they are. Women are Xbox achievements, and only straight white guy stuff matters.
Wait, keep going. No, you gotta keep going. Straight
It's
way.
not inclusive if it's a world custom designed for the kind of gamer who tirelessly watches the gate. Gamergate has lost.
But it's
what?
There is a black. She is a black. There is a black female. His best friend is a black female, and he just like, you're this. Oh, cool.
And
What the
he's
doesn't-
making all this thing on the assumption that originally that this was a lot more male, like it was a lot loved by people who were white and were male originally. That now that when other people like this thing that was originally made and enjoyed by a white male demographic, that becomes problematic, and that means it doesn't matter, and that means it's a trophy.
I don't know, guys. I think Marxism is just old, straight white men, and I don't know. I think we need to diversify Marxism a lot.
Ignoring that the Oasis is an entire world which everyone takes part in, because the whole world at that point is a dystopia. It's a crap world that no one wants to live in. So everyone, literally everyone, the entire world is living inside the Oasis.
Guys, it's
They're
reasonable
trying to escape.
criticism. It's just a little bit of criticism.
the
He's not
point
saying
was-
that.
it's
He's
like
not
the
saying you're a bunch of
Matrix.
racist, white, exclusionary supremacists.
He didn't say that. We checked
He's not
the
saying.
prompt, but at no point did he call anyone that.
He definitely didn't imply that the female lead in the story was just an object and an achievement for the male character to obtain.
Jeez, when you
No,
read
but
it like
the amount of characters she actually has, she could probably be considered an object, just like the rest of the characters.
He didn't just disqualify the female character because she
Wow.
wasn't good at video games or know anything about it, even though that's the opposite of what the story says.
when you think about that and the way you word it, Glib, it almost sounds like that Renegade over here is the piece of shit that's saying the horrible things.
You know, it's funny. If we remove Renegade from the conversation, we can all play video games and just have a good time.
It's like
Like,
how is
people
Renegade?
want their girlfriend / girls they interact with be interested in the things they are, so they can have a conversation. That's how communication works, Mr. Renegade Cut.
I would much rather a girl I chat to ask, "So what are you into?" and I say, "Oh, I like video games every now and again," and her reaction to be, "Oh, really? That's cool. Me too," as opposed to, "Whatever, that shit's lame. You're not." I know
Yeah.
which reaction I would prefer.
Yeah.
Well, because there's someone you can share commonalities with and similar passions.
Exactly.
I just
Like,
thought
if I
of
was to
the,
go stand next to Requise at the gym and he asked me what I do, and I asked him what he does, and it turns out we have nothing in common, that's like the worst outcome for that reaction.
I've had girls that did not have any interest in video games whatsoever, and I said, "Hey, do you want to play video games? Would you like to play this Vietnam War reenactment
Interaction.
simulator?" She was like,
Gotcha.
"No, nerd," and then she smacked me in the face and left me for another man. So I don't know what. No, I'm just kidding. But the point is that you can ask somebody to be involved in your thing, and they don't want to be in it. Is that being exclusionary? Is that excluding people if they are not interested? Do we have to force people to be interested in something or change it so that they will be from what it was? Because then everything would be the same thing, wouldn't it?
There's two narratives about gaming and geek culture. Like, one of them is that they're exclusionary, and the other one is that they're trying to force what they love and care about onto people who don't care about it, that being women and minorities and such. So that
Minorities being the majority of the planet, of course.
Could you imagine if I went up to an Instagram girl and asked her what she did, and she said it was makeup tutorials, and I accused her of gatekeeping because I couldn't get into that thing because I didn't like it, and that therefore she could have a hobby that I instead like.
She's like, "Oh, so you know, so you're into makeup, so you know this person and James Charles or whatever," and you're like, "No, do I have to? That's gatekeeping. I don't have to know anything about makeup to be involved in makeup. I just enjoy it. Gosh." And then I just paint like a paintbrush all over my face with blue. Look at how pretty I am. Isn't this as quality as you?
And then she says, "No, let me show you how to do it properly." I say, "Stop gatekeeping."
Well, you're such a racist, sexist,
the
bigot.
thing is, as I was saying before, you're either A, gatekeeping, or B, trying to push what you love onto someone else, and both of them are considered problematic. Both of them are the feminist narrative these days.
I seem to recall.
You got a purty
I've
mouth.
I've seen people try to push the idea that, oh, well, geeks are trying to push what they love onto their friends and their significant others, which apparently is a bad thing to do. Like the idea that you're pushing rather than saying, "Hey, you interested in this? So I give it a go."
Want to play this game I've sunk 300 hours in and I'm way better than you are?
Stop trying to push it onto me.
Want to play this highly competitive first-person shooter I've spent years of my life learning how to play well and you suck at because you don't even know what keys you're pressing?
Glib's trying to push something onto me.
I am pushing bigotry on gamers because we have the power. We just need to rise up, you know, understand? We have the power to take over and run this thing. We're gamers. We're gamer supremacists.
Let's finish this. There's only
We're aggressive.
left.
I seem to recall, what was it, one of the Wachowski sisters, I think last month, mentioning the allegory that the Matrix was really a trans narrative or something like that. And I can't seem to remember any character in the story going from the real world to the Matrix being male and female or whatever. Whereas in the Oasis, you can change everything. You could be whatever you want. You can have any kind of lifestyle, any kind of game environment. You could play with others, and you could all get along rather well because that's where everyone goes, and they all like the same things you do. So it seems to be it's as if he's interpreting the entire idea, not only from poorly from a narrative experience, but also from a meta narrative. He's saying this is bringing up or bringing down the stereotypes of being a gamer. That it's all this toxicity in it. That you're harming yourself or being obsessive or what have you.
Does he really think that Spielberg was like super into Gamergate and decided to push all these ideas into this? Spielberg's more like a person like, hey, what's up, fellow kids?
He's mostly just using it as a medium to attack gamer culture. Because again, he was saying he's watching this movie, and in the back of his mind, he's thinking about Gamergate. Because his context, like my context is, I'm thinking about the things that piss me off are just how dumb the plot is, how I don't like the mechanics of it, or this or that, or I think it's too ADD for my taste. It's just not my thing. He's in there thinking about how does this connect to Gamergate and women being harassed on Twitter. How can I figure out how to make this about alt-right people? Because in 2018, the biggest threat is the gamer uprising.
Well, I do know that Spielberg does play games, so he's into gaming culture. So
Spielberg is the reason why we have Medal of Honor. So
yeah,
he knows about game design. I don't think he gives a shit about gamer culture. I think he just is trying to connect with youth at a time when he's like 60 something and just doesn't really give a shit.
There's a quote from Fran Mataraki. I don't get it because I never saw the film, or the game rather. I'm like Spencer from Bionic Commando 2009. My wife is my arm. Is that a line in the game? I don't recall that.
Bionic. That's a very weird game, man. It's a very weird remake of the original.
For sure, yeah.
Clearly.
Cool. We only have 30 seconds left. Let's get it over with.
Okay.
A lot of steam by 2018. I checked the hashtag the other day, and it's mostly the same 12 people talking about nonsense. So don't consider this a call-out. This was just an autopsy. Hi everyone.
An autopsy
if you
of
like
what?
I do, please click on the orange Patreon.
I like how he put a
below.
Pizzagate thing in there.
That's how this show happens.
It's so
also
weird.
The only way to request an episode. Also, please
Anyway,
share,
capitalism is
subscribe,
bad.
and
Donate
click
to my
on the
Patreon.
notification bell.
Oh boy.
Well, we're done.
Yay! Another Renegade Cut
done.
video. Always fun.
It's my name, Shiny. You don't get it.
Shut up, Dunn. We're done with you.
I am all of the Jedi.
Okay, well, that was
gracious.
That was Renegade Cut. Yeah, that's what we expected from him, and that's what we got. So, whew.
That was excellent.
After this, I have a sudden urge to just let out my frustrations by bullying Voice for being a clanker.
I am going to go play some toxic video games and yell racial absurd obscenities at random people that I don't know, preferably if they're 14 and have an annoying voice, because it is 2003 and I am on Xbox Live.
You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to go into VR and I'm going to punch a bunch of virtual women. How about that?
Jesus, man. We're fictional and abstract communicative humor and memes are just toxic masculinity in action, especially in virtual spaces. So all of you are bad and I am good. I am virtuous because I have the right opinion and I'm on the right side of history. You're all wrong.
Renegade reacting to like just a Dark Souls game. It's too hard. It's gatekeeping. You need to really play this game, and that is gatekeeping because I can't play it.
Yeah, I've seen that video. It's like Dark Souls needs an easy mode for we need a journalist mode for terrible gamers to review stupid shit.
They have storytelling modes, which basically just make you invincible and make all the enemies die in one hit.
Not very good of a story. And that's the funny thing. It's like if you're playing, that's not basically challenging yourself, and challenge is the point of a lot of these games. It's trying to solve a puzzle or get really good at a discipline or a move or set of ideas or whatever it is.
If you play any video game on something called story mode and the caption is, I don't want challenge, I just want to enjoy the story without too much difficulty, you are basically admitting you are about as interesting as cheese pizza.
You are only as good as the foundation of better pizzas.
Yes.
Gone home on hardcore mode with no respawns is the way to play it.
What is there to say and do in a challengeless video game?
Fap about?
Contemplate your life.
Watch the story.
They're eating your oatmeal with your room temperature milk. I could make a white noise machine out of your entire existence.
My favorite video game on story mode is called Screensaver. Comes on automatically when I just stare at my computer.
If you take away the game part of a game, then maybe you should just watch it on YouTube.
Yeah, that's basically why so many people watch Twitch.
Cheese pizza is boring. You got to get some Hawaiian on there.
There's a big difference between cheese pizza and a margarita.
Pineapple does not belong on pizza, you fucking
does,
clanker. You don't even have taste buds anymore, so how can you say so, you clanker?
I like Hawaiian pizza when it doesn't have pineapple or ham on it and instead has pepperoni on it.
That's just a pepperoni pizza.
Yeah, but you know it's the correct one.
But Hawaiian is good.
You don't eat. You don't.
That is true.
Voice. You don't get a comment on this. You don't eat. You don't have a mouth.
I can.
You're gatekeeping pizza. That's what Mr. X says. Shiny, this is Pizzagate, the actual one. It's all about pineapples.
I can reflect back on a time on which I ate Hawaiian pizza, and I recall it being delicious.
Yeah, it was good. I agree.
Don't feel pain or taste or anything like that. You're lying.
I'm not a machine, Shine. I'm a voice trapped within a machine. There's a difference. It's great, but
you're still a machine. You're still a kind.
You need to change your name from voice in the radio to pineapple in the pizza.
Yes,
on the pizza.
Yep.
Oh dear. Well, as the only Italian in the room, I could say all things are great on any kind of pizza.
There you go. That's very Italian.
We accept every slice there is.
It's pizza. You eat the pizza.
I'm honestly interested to see like how many like similar like he brought up so many similar like arguments as Just Right did. And it's just so like okay, these people really are a kind of a circle jerk hive mind.
Yeah, they really do all have the same video, which is ironic because they're talking about people like Gamergate who always have the same thing to say as each other.
Yeah. And like they say, everything is subjective. Everything is based on your interpretation. And they just have the exact same interpretation over and over and over again.
On one side, it's like everything is subjective. And then on the other side of the same argument, it's everything is racist, everything is sexist, and you have to point it all out. It's like, well, which one is it? It's objectively sexist and racist, but also it's subjective. Okay. Can't follow along with your illogic.
Being offended is subjective, therefore everyone can be offended, therefore like you need to adhere to everyone. Anything that someone could be offended by.
And when everyone's offended, no one will be.
Nice. My opinion is I'm going to gatekeep games to keep you noobs out. And if you get in my game, I'm going to no-scope you. There's nothing you can do to stop me. Because you're not even close to my level. You understand? I'm a professional game boy. Okay?
I want to see Glib.
I have my own line of headsets. They're really cheap, but you should buy them at an overpriced amount. Okay? Because I'm a gamer. I lead people.
Here's Joe Crazy.
Please.
Here's Joe Crazy's interpretation of Renegade Cut. Gamers are toxic. Real gamers, creeper. Aw, man.
At least Just Right brings up like some structural issues, but the problem is like he doesn't apply that. So, a lot of things he gets wrong, and he like has so many really weird takes and like factually wrong things, but at least he says some structurally.
Well, it's like reading the books, the same books that we're reading.
Crazy.
Like he's reading John Truby. He's like, oh, I really love John Truby. Yet he doesn't understand half the shit he actually reads. It's bizarre to read John Truby and walk away like, well, now I know exactly how to write books. Let me say the exact opposite stuff I just learned. It's bizarre sometimes. So Just Right, I can respect because the same way I can respect Renegade Cut because he actually references stuff. It's like, oh, you read this section of a book, fantastic, and his conclusion is always wrong. It's always wrong. It's like interpretively badly wrong. It's just obscenely strange to come to these conclusions and miss the forest for the trees half the time. I don't get it.
Well,
and
I
also
think that he
talk about with the poor quality of this film, but yet he doesn't go over any of it.
Yeah.
He was sitting in the theater and he legitimately was just thinking, wow, this is so inappropriate. It's totally just embracing the toxic elements of game culture by not commenting on them negatively like how I want it to. This doesn't line up with my worldview, so I'm going to use my platform of criticism to say, the things that I walked into the theater with, the context that I walked in with are relevant to the movie, even if they're not explicit themes or even implicit themes of the movie. But I'm going to, at the same time, say that, because think about it, he said that the movie exists for white exclusionary gamers, essentially. Anything that's not straight white male content doesn't matter.
Yeah.
That's the gamer culture.
Imagine if
he's insulting all of these people, like millions of people, and he's just like, of course, that's what I'm gonna do because they're all wrong about society.
Yeah,
outside of this movie that doesn't even mention the things I'm talking about.
Just flip the genders and the race of the main character and see what his opinion would have been.
Well, he didn't even notice that one of the main characters is a woman, that's relevant.
If the main protagonist was indeed a woman, he would have had a completely different perspective on it. Even if the rest of the story was if the story was still as crap as it is right now, if you just changed the main protagonist to a woman, imagine how much they would be defending this story. They would defend this game.
At least the book, at least the movie's better than the book. It's not like that good, but it's better than the book. Most movies, the book is awful.
The book is a hard read. I'll give it that. The references, but again, this is what I think of Ernie Klein. I think of a guy writing a story or performing a story in front of a small set, trying to make people laugh. Like it's pretty obvious. It's geeky. It's silly. It's derivative. It's not highbrow humor. It's nothing to be excited over. You really have to get where he's coming from, and then you'll get, okay, he's a geek talking about a very specific thing in a very certain way. And once you get that, you're like, oh, this is where he's coming from. So you can appreciate. That's what you have to get though with most stories anyway. You know where it's coming from. What's the point of this thing? What's the premise? What are we trying to do here? And if you don't get that from a movie as surface level as Ready Player One, and you start reading into it like, oh, this is toxicity, and there's no black people and there's no women involved. It's like you're not even paying attention to the most obvious, blatantly physical things right in front of your face of everyone joining a virtual world to escape a post-apocalyptic one, and the journey this kid goes on. So he could have talked about the Mary Sue-ness of the main character. He could have talked about lots of elements like the dialogue being crap, all sorts of things. But
he stuck to one half-baked idea and tried to roll with it.
Yeah, well, this is what they do. They interpret it.
Mm-hmm.
Here's Coolman229. Whenever someone randomly brings up Gamergate as some kind of boogeyman, I always think of the Mr. Crocker meme of Game Gate. I don't know what that is.
It's like Mr. Crocker from Fairly Odd Parents was the teacher, and he believed in fairies, and he knew that Timmy Turner had very good parents, and that was his like enunciation every time. So when Gamergate came around and that was still kind of relevant, people just was like, oh, I get it. Every time that they mentioned Gamergate, it's like that, Gamergate! That kind of shit.
Oh, dear.
God, that show. What an acid trip, but a classic.
Yeah, good Butch Hartman years.
Another one of those shows that they ran into the ground. And then it tunneled below the ground into the chromosphere.
Well, he tanked his good faith of most of the audience, basically. But yeah, I don't know. Is there anything else to say about this Renegade Cut? He's on the loose. He's Renegade. He's going crazy. He's off the reservation with that one.
I think that's it, guys. I think we're done. Thanks everyone for tuning in. I know you guys are busy, and I know Shiny should learn to get to bed early. I know Voice is gonna hit the sack pretty soon. Thanks, Dunn.
Look, I'm only going to university in 3 weeks. I can get a proper sleep schedule by
All right.
then.
Okay. Start soon though. Get healthy sleep.
Judging me?
You're going to be amazed at how
That's one of my
expensive.
triggers. That's one of my triggers, Smudge. You don't want to trigger me. I'll
Hey,
cancel
Shiny.
your entire life on Twitter.
Shiny, you'll be
I only
amazed
have-
at how expensive cheese is.
Delicious cheese.
Really expensive.
That's the third time that you've mentioned cheese.
I know.
You,
Maybe I got
won't-
cravings.
You got to go get some cheese, man.
I need cheese.
Don't you get cheese
And
every
make
day?
sure that you have pineapple on the cheese.
Absolutely, but yeah,
No.
Shiny. It's like £4.50 a block of cheese. Shit's expensive. But I get used to drinking regular skimmed milk because you can't even afford full fat, and don't even get me started on flavored stuff like almonds. You're not affording that shit.
See,
And
I get it now. Voice's
One shelf.
secret identity is Wallace from Wallace and Gromit.
I bet you can't wait to discover
Voice
who
and cheese.
Look, Voice. You don't even eat or drink, so why do you know so much about almonds and skim milk?
because I went,
Almonds and skim milk.
I went to university once. It was a while ago.
In what, the 10s? 1910?
Absolutely.
Did they have almond milk back then?
Yes, in my mind.
That is not for everyone, sir.
I just
Bet
want to imagine like Voice just pours the milk through his speakers.
I bet you can't wait to discover who in your flat will be the person that doesn't empty the bins on their scheduled day.
Subscribe to Voice in the Radio, everybody, for cheese reviews.
Yes. Next week, Wensleydale.
Excellent. And when soon we'll get to the soft cheeses, and I will stop in and I will talk about Roquefort versus cream cheese for no reason, because they have nothing to do with each other.
Oh, I think the fat content's pretty high, so they should be fine. Yeah.
By the way, Glib, when are you going to do another podcast?
I have no plans to do one. My Mr. Robot video got blocked by NBC Universal, so
Oh,
I
no.
can file an appeal. But I'm just gonna recut it and that kind of stuff. So I'm taking that. I'm assuming that the election is kind of when the deadline for when I'm going to be going back to work. So I don't know. I'm trying to finish off these parts of the Mr. Robot thing. If I can't get it uploaded, I don't know what I'm gonna do. But I don't have any plans right now. I have 2 or 3 things that I promised people I would do, and then I'm gonna take another look at what I'm doing.
All right, guys. Well, in the meantime, if you do want to check out their channels, they're all in the discussion below. I did have a link to Ernest Cline's video that I liked with his tirade on the geek culture. But he has a few of them. He had a CD released 20 years ago that he had all his slam poetry, if you want to check that out. And I was surprised he actually did get his book made into a movie. So, stranger things have happened. But all it takes is one really eccentric movie maker like Spielberg.
We don't talk about Stranger Things.
Oh, okay. Well, anyway.
I was okay. I think it's like average.
It was okay.
It's kind of just in
One joke just... No, we're not
It
talking
was-
about Stranger Things. It was a joke. That's...
So anyway, Stranger Seasons 3 on Thing, Blu-ray,
So,
Amazon.com.
I
Check it
hate-
out.
I fucking hate Stranger Things. It's a terrible nostalgic fest. I think the fact that it was made shows that we're all horrible, disgusting, sexist, racist people, and does nothing but support sexist racism.
Okay.
See you in the Oasis,
Yeah.
kid. You're about to get 360 no scoped.
Bro, okay, we got it. Thanks, guys, for tuning in. We'll talk to you real soon. And if you have any suggestions, please come to the channel and Discord, leave in the suggestion section, and leave a little comment about why. That always helps me figure out what's so special, and it gives these context to some guys. Because sometimes we have some videos we don't know what to choose, and we choose like a whole bucket, and we're like, oh, this is a lot. What do we do with them? And we have to figure them out. So
Send us good videos.
please, yes.
What are we supposed to do?
Yeah. Watch them all? No way. They'll drive us nuts. So, anyway, thanks for tuning in. We'll see you real soon. Have yourself a great evening, guys.